Hello, my name is Macy. I'm a 42-year-old woman who has been married twice. My second marriage has been amazing, but my first was a train wreck. My first husband, Bobby, and I were high school sweethearts, the classic jock and cheerleader couple. We had fun together, and he made me happy at the time. Since he was my first relationship, I went above and beyond for him, believing he was my forever. We planned to attend the same university so we could be together, but in my second year, at 19, I got pregnant. Neither my family nor I was thrilled. My mom frequently warned me that life with Bobby wouldn't be blissful. My family never liked him, though they couldn't pinpoint why, just a feeling that something was off. But as a rebellious teenager, I ignored their concerns, determined to prove them wrong. Our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, for which I remain super grateful. Bobby and I got married in court and welcomed our first child. Initially, Bobby was an amazing father, and I felt vindicated. 2 years later, I got pregnant again. By then, I had graduated, but I quit my job to care for our children. Bobby worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Life was tough, but with Bobby by my side, I felt invincible. However, a few months after our second child was born, Bobby's behavior changed. I tried talking to him, but he was unresponsive. One day, after taking the kids for a walk, I returned to find our apartment empty of all his things. I panicked, and seeing me upset made the kids cry. My calls went straight to voicemail. I rushed to my mother's place with my crying children. "What happened?" my mother asked, alarmed. "I think Bobby left me," I replied, struggling to hold back tears. "What do you mean?" "I took the kids for a walk, and when I got back, all his things were gone. I can't reach him." "Oh no. Do you know why he might have left?" "I don't know. He'd been acting differently for a while, but he wouldn't talk to me. And now this." "Calm down. We should wait a while. If he doesn't come back, we'll file for divorce." "I'll help you out." But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? I know. I wish I could find him and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not just for your sake, but for the kids. My mom was right. I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep many nights, but eventually, months turned into years and I slowly healed. When the kids were old enough, I told them the truth about their father. They were devastated but surprisingly understanding. Together we learned to move past the pain. My mom was a tremendous help, making raising 2 kids easier than it would have been alone. 13 years after Bobby left, I met my current husband, Fred, at a bar. I was out with friends celebrating a birthday. My mom had the kids, so I decided to have some fun. Towards the end of the night, Fred approached me. My friends had been urging me to date for years, but I was too traumatized by Bobby to try. When Fred came over, my friends left to give us some space. He started by asking if he could buy me a drink. I accepted, not turning down a free drink. We waited until our drinks arrived to start talking. "So what brings you here?" he asked. "It's my friend's birthday. I'm here to celebrate with her." "That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them?" "All of them? There are 7 more people." "It's all right. I'll make up the money I spend here the next 2 hours, so no worries." "Wow, so you're rich? I guess you could say that. I'm not trying to brag though." "No, it's a great thing. Not a lot of people get to do that. And you're not being a prick about it. You're buying drinks for strangers because it's one of their birthdays." "What can I say? I have a weakness for pretty women." "You're so weak you believe everything they say, even lies." "Yes, although did you lie?" "No, it really is one of their birthdays. But it's concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked. Maybe you could help with that. If I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one." I could think about that. It was such a self-esteem boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially since he looked gorgeous, like someone who belonged on the cover of Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to flirt back casually, something I wasn't usually capable of. Being an introvert, it was either the drink or Fred's captivating aura that made me feel comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually my friends came to get me, but not before I profusely thanked Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking. It started with texts, then calls whenever we had free time or something interesting to share. We also began meeting up more often. Initially, we met in public places, but as months passed, we started hanging out at each other's places. I remember my jaw dropping when I walked into his house. It was literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. He was very open about wanting to marry me and often told me how comfortable he felt around me, which only made me love him more. Fred was also open to me having kids. He was particularly upset when I told him about Bobby and went above and beyond to show me how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people didn't want me to marry or even be with Bobby. I was glad I got out of that relationship, even though I hated how it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget about it, which I was super grateful for. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out all our guests, which was technically just a handful since we only wanted those really close to us. My kids were super happy for me and constantly told me they loved Fred, which in my head was another big win. Life from then on moved smoothly, and every worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids with their education even though I insisted I could handle it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal, not just me and then my kids. He had my kids' rooms decorated to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything Bobby didn't and more, which was a true point of healing for our small family. Our family grew from there. Fred and I had a child of our own, yet he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another turning point for our family. After that, we became one big family. We did everything families did, going out to eat, going on vacations, and doing fun things together. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred's company was thriving. There wasn't a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Look who it is, it's Macy. Who is this? Don't you recognize me? It's Bobby here. How are you doing? Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number? Ah, I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me. Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word. Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do. You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook that because of her money. She got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids. You gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was stunned by the pure audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. A part of me wanted to keep the conversation going so I could find out where he was and punch him. But I was overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. After I cut the call, I felt so much hurt, not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for most of their lives without a father because he was too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew it was a struggle, but what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night. He was understandably upset but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't bother to be polite this time and just hung up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week to tell me about his expensive purchases. I kept blocking each number he used, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. Eventually, I stopped picking up. It seemed like he derived some sick pleasure from bothering me. One particular day, I was at work and already stressed when Bobby called me again. Oh, hey, Macy. Can't you just leave me alone? Oh, come on, I'm making up for the lost time. Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone. You know you love it, Macy. I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new life. Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living a life that you'll never be able to live? I can assure you I'm not. Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. It was such a self-esteem boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially because he looked like he belonged on the cover of Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to casually flirt back with him. I was usually very introverted, so I don't know if it was the drink or Fred's aura. But I felt comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually, my friends came and got me, but not before profusely thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking to each other. It started with texts, then calls whenever we had something interesting to share. We also started meeting up a lot more often. At first, it was in very public places, but as months went by, we began hanging out at each other's places. I remember the way my jaw dropped when I walked into his house. It was quite literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how he had never felt so comfortable around anyone aside from me, and that only made me love him more. Fred was also more than open to me having kids. He was particularly upset for me when I told him about Bobby. Ever since then, Fred went above and beyond to show me just how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people didn't want me marrying or even just being with Bobby. I was glad that I got out of it, but I hated the way it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget all about it, for which I was super grateful. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out all our guests, who were just a handful of our closest friends and family. My kids were super happy for me and constantly told me they loved Fred, which was another big win. Life moved on very smoothly from then on. Every single worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids out with their education, even though I told him I would take care of it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal, not just me and my kids. He had their rooms decorated and set up to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything that Bobby didn't and more. That was a true point of healing for my small family. Fred and I had a child of our own, and he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another turning point in our family. We became one big family, doing everything that families do, like going out to eat, going on vacations, and doing fun things together. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred's company was thriving. There was not a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello. Look who it is. It's Macy. Who is this? Don't you recognize me? I don't think I remember much. Anyway, who is this? It's Bobby here. How are you doing? Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number? I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me. Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word. Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do. You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook that because of her money. She got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids. You gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was stunned by the pure audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. A part of me wanted to keep the conversation going so I could find out where he was and punch him. But I was overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. After I cut the call, I felt so much hurt, not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for most of their lives without a father because he was too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew it was a struggle. But what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night. He was understandably upset but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't bother to be polite this time and just hung up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week to tell me about his expensive purchases. I kept blocking each number he used, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. Eventually, I stopped picking up. It seemed like he derived some sick pleasure from bothering me. One particular day, I was at work and already stressed when Bobby called me again. "Oh, hey, Macy. Can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh, come on, I'm making up for the lost time." "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone." "You know you love it, Macy." "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living a life that you'll never be able to live?" "I can assure you I'm not." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion." "I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digidome, one of the finest media companies." I'm going to hang up. I was furious and annoyed, but something he said kept tickling my brain. I was way too angry to think about it at that moment, so I let it go. When I got back home, I thought about what it was that Bobby said that tickled my brain. Then it hit me. He said he worked for Digidome, one of the finest media companies, which I had to agree with. They were responsible for hiring and recruiting some of the most talented influencers and journalists in our city. The reason I kept thinking about it was because Fred is the CEO and founder of the company Bobby was working for, my husband. I could not believe how wonderfully the universe had aligned for me. That meant I could finally teach Bobby a good lesson, not only for bothering me, but also for abandoning his children. I waited with excitement until Fred got back home. When he did, I told him all about what had happened during the day. "Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper?" "Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big." "Oh, what is it?" So Bobby called again. That sick son of a gun. I swear, if I had any way to get a hold of him, I would beat him up real good. That's the thing. He may be way closer than we ever expected. Huh? What do you mean? Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, which is at Digidome. You mean to tell me that he works at my company? Yeah. At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. Did you really not remember the company I created? Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack. I'm kidding. Anyway, do you want me to fire him? Absolutely. But before you do, I was wondering if there was any way to humiliate him. Definitely bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him. With that, we began planning how to create the best revenge plan. We decided to wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him because we were going to record his calls to me and have them played in front of everyone. The company was going to hold a huge event in 2 months, and to our luck, Bobby was going to be in charge of it. There were going to be several big names present, and we were going to tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I picked up all of Bobby's calls without getting frustrated or angry. Knowing I had the biggest upper hand was enough to put a smile on my face as I listened to him ramble about his wealth and my lack of it. This time, I made sure to record every conversation. These conversations were going to come back to bite him hard, and I couldn't wait for it. At the end of the 2 months, the event happened. I originally didn't plan to go because I didn't like big crowds or having to talk to a lot of people, which was why no one really knew who the big boss's wife was. However, this event was where I would make my appearance. I wanted to see Bobby's fall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me this gorgeous and very expensive dress, which I wore. I stayed in the car until Fred called me because we didn't want Bobby to see me and make a run for it. I only entered when Fred gave his speech in which he told everyone he wanted to introduce his wife for the first time. When I walked up on that stage, Bobby was standing there. I saw his face drop and pale. I smirked at him as I walked by, and he pulled out his handkerchief to dab the sweat all over his face. Fred then went on to praise me, talking about how much of an impact I had on him these past 7 years, and how it had been a joy to raise my kids with me. With every praise Fred aimed at me, I saw Bobby sweat even more. I beamed with pride as the crowd clapped for me. Then Fred's speech took a turn. He began to talk about how I had been getting harassed by my ex-husband recently. He told the crowd about how my ex-husband had abandoned me and my kids to father another woman's children just because she had wealth. But the universe had different plans for my ex-husband because he was working for his company. The crowd gasped and erupted into murmurs about who my ex could have been. Fred asked everyone to quiet down and told them he was going to reveal who it was. Bobby kept looking toward the exit, but he knew that if he dashed for it, Fred wouldn't even have to reveal who it was because he would have outed himself. Fred then pointed towards Bobby and told everyone it was him. The crowd once again erupted in murmurs. Bobby looked like he was about to pass out, but Fred wasn't done yet. He told everyone he had proof of all of this and proceeded to play the recordings of all the calls Bobby had made to me in the past few weeks. Bobby stilled as he heard everything. Fred then announced that because of everything Bobby did, he would no longer be working with his company. The crowd cheered for Fred and me as we walked off the stage. Bobby was escorted out of the event, and the rest of it went smoothly. I had served my revenge, and there was nothing sweeter than that. Fred and I had a blast at the event, and I even managed to find someone who offered me a position at their firm. The day after the event, I got my last phone call from an unknown number. "You're awfully bold to call me again after last night. You tricked me." "Whatever do you mean? You absolute witch. Don't play stupid with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again? And that too, married to my boss." "Like I told you several times, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you." "I know that, but the decent thing for you to do was to inform me. So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was. If my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued to do it. Don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting anything. You want to talk about being decent, Bobby? The decent thing you could have done was not abandon your family. If you could do something like that, I can do something like this. Have fun with your current family, and I hope you find a new job." "I don't have a current family. My wife left me because of yesterday, and she took the kids. It's all because of you." "I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. If you had just not called me, your life would have been what you always wanted it to be. But I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck." It felt liberating to finally get back at Bobby and know I destroyed everything good in his life. I hope Bobby learns never to mess with me or my family again because he will never get anything good out of that. Fred and I continue to thrive together, and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is once again going smoothly, and I no longer stress about Bobby's calls. I'm finally vindicated and feel lighter than I have for the first time in a long while. Thank you for listening to my story. Hey, I'm Meredith, a new mom to a beautiful 4-month-old daughter named Hope. She means the world to me. Hope arrived during a time when I felt incredibly vulnerable and in desperate need of support. It's been 8 months since I lost my husband, John. We were married for almost 2 years, and he was truly the love of my life. He was my first real relationship, and I always hoped he would be my last. He will forever hold a special place in my heart. When I was nearing the end of my second trimester, everything seemed to be going smoothly. John and I were over the moon about our upcoming baby. It felt like our family was finally getting that one missing puzzle piece. But then tragedy struck, and John was taken from me in a car accident. Identifying his body was a gut-wrenching experience, and I felt like my world had crumbled. I fell into a deep depression, hitting rock bottom. My parents, who lived in another part of the state, rushed over to support me as much as they could. They stayed with me for as long as possible. Then my best friend, Vicky, stepped in to help me through this incredibly tough time. They became my lifelines after John's passing. John's parents, Lindsay and Farrell, had always been kind and loving towards me, considering me part of their family. However, things took an unexpected turn one day after John's death. Vicky had moved in with me temporarily until the baby arrived. I was almost a month away from my due date, and given everything I had been through, Being alone wasn't the best idea. One day, out of the blue, Lindsay and Farrell showed up at my place. It was a surprise visit, though they had been visiting frequently. Vicky wasn't home, and I was by myself. Hey Meredith, it's us. Hello guys, how are you holding up? We're managing. Where's Vicky? She's out grabbing groceries. Peanut butter and pickles cravings, you know. Oh, I remember those strange cravings. Pregnancy does funny things to you. Thanks for coming over. I miss John so much, but having you here helps. I feel closer to him when you're around. You were everything to him, Meredith. We are here for you, and soon you'll have your little one here. Speaking of which, how are the preparations for the baby going? Vicky has been a huge help. The nursery is ready, and we're just counting down the days now. John would have been so happy. I wish he could be here for this. Speaking of the future, there's something we'd like to discuss with you. Sure, what's up? Well, you know there might be some money that used to belong to John. Okay, go on. What about it? We actually need that money now. Wait, what? Why? See, that money was sort of ours to begin with. We put it into John's upbringing and education. Seriously. And you want it back? But that money is for me and my baby. Let me explain, dear. John might not have mentioned it, but we see that money as something we invested in him. We even paid half of his college tuition as his birthday present. We raised him and supported his education. It was a present. You shouldn't have expected to get it back. Anyway, I'm pregnant, not working, and I need that money for the baby. We need the money to take care of things at our house too, you know. And I would have loved to help you, but the truth is I will be raising this child as a single mother. I've got my own financial responsibilities to handle. I really need that money now more than ever. You're being selfish and greedy. I bet you're secretly relieved that John is gone so you can have all the money for yourself. You pretend to be all concerned about your baby, but God knows what you're going to do with it. How could you even say something like that? I couldn't hold back the tears. I was utterly stunned by their behavior. 2 years of marriage, and this is how they treated me just because I refused to give them the money that legally belonged to me after John's death, especially when I was pregnant. It was unbelievable, and their words hurt deeply. I would never wish anything bad upon John. I decided that I didn't want Farrell and Lindsay anywhere near me. When Vicky returned, I told her about everything that had happened. She agreed with me. With Farrell and Lindsay out of the picture, it was just Vicky, my parents, and me looking out for each other and my upcoming child. It was a really rough time during the final stretch of my pregnancy. My mom came to stay with me. She's a devout woman and suggested we go to church one Sunday morning to pray for the baby's well-being. I agreed, so off we went. As we stepped into the sacred space, guess who we bumped into? Farrell. Of all people, he was volunteering at the church. My mom sensed things could get awkward, so she recommended we keep our church visits short and sweet. We prayed for the baby and left. When the service ended, and before we could make a quiet exit, Farrell approached us. Hey, Meredith, can we chat for a sec? He asked. Sorry, Farrell, but my daughter doesn't want to talk to you. My mom interjected. It's all right, Mom. What's up, Farrell? Look, I'm sorry about the other day. Actually, both of us are. You know, Lindsay called you and all. Yeah, she did. I received all her voicemails. While she's regretful for what she said, it wasn't cool, and she didn't mean any of it. She's having a tough time dealing with losing John, and she kind of lost it. So could you maybe think about giving us another chance? What she said was way out of line, you know. Yeah, we get that. We said some messed up stuff too. But can we try to make things right? Maybe give Lindsay a call. All right, I'll consider it. I went back home and mulled over what Farrell had said. It occurred to me that they had lost their son. It wasn't just me who had lost their husband, so I decided to give Lindsay a call. Hey, Lindsay. Hello, Meredith. How are you holding up? Well, with the baby due in a month, it's getting more nerve-wracking by the day. I remember those days well. They can be incredibly daunting, especially considering John's passing. You didn't just lose your husband. You lost the father of your child. I'm truly sorry for my words the other day. You always brought happiness to my son. I appreciate your apology. I'm sorry for not returning your calls earlier. Your grief over losing your son is just as valid. Meredith, you're still a part of our family. I've been thinking, despite your reservations about a baby shower, how about we host a small gathering at our place? It would only include us and a few of our close family friends. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. It's getting quite late in the pregnancy. Don't worry, Meredith. We'll take care of everything. Consider it a gift from us to you. Well, okay, I'm in. I'll send you the details via text. It was a really sweet gesture from Lindsay to organize the baby shower, even though I hadn't initially wanted one. I talked it over with my mom, and she thought it was a nice idea too. The next day, Lindsay texted me asking for a guest list, and the number of people attending was set. The baby shower was scheduled for 2 days later. She told me to dress nicely, relax, and just enjoy the party at her place. Honestly, I was looking forward to it. We hadn't done anything fun since John passed away. I sent her the guest list and went shopping for a maternity dress with my mom. When the day of the baby shower arrived, I went to Lindsay and Farrell's place. It was beautifully decorated with balloons and flowers. My friends had also gathered there. Little did I know that Lindsay would turn the baby shower into a cryfest for me. The issue arose because I invited one of my male friends from school, Chris, to the event. He had also been at John's funeral and was friends with him. He came up to me. "Hey, Meredith, how are you holding up?" "Chris, it's been a roller coaster, but I'm hanging in there. Thanks for being here." "Of course, I wouldn't miss this for the world. You're looking great, by the way." "Thanks, Chris. It's been a tough few months, but I'm excited to meet my baby soon." John would have been thrilled. I know he would have made an amazing dad. Yeah, he would have. It's hard knowing our child won't get to know him. He'll live on in your hearts, Meredith, and in this little one. You're right. I promise I'll be there for you and your baby. Thank you, Chris. That means a lot to me. Chris was just being friendly. He was married, and there was absolutely no sort of flirting going on. But for some reason, Lindsay heard us talking and got fixated on this. She pulled me aside into her room, saying she wanted to talk. "I can't believe you're throwing yourself at Chris like that when he's clearly into you." "What do you even mean? Do you think I haven't noticed? It's been 8 months since we lost John. How can you even think of this? Chris is just a friend. He was even friends with John, and now he's chatting you up." "What a great friend, huh? He has a wife, and you have the baby of your dead husband in your belly. That isn't stopping you." "What? First you take our money, and now you're disrespecting our dead son. I feel so sorry for him. You don't know what it's like losing a child, but I hope you do. Do you even hear yourself? You better keep your little one away from me." I quickly wiped my tears away and decided to bail from the baby shower without making a scene. Leaving Lindsay's place, I felt a mix of sadness and betrayal. Seriously, how could she say those things about me and my baby? It was like she had turned into a monster. I was terrified of her. My mom, who could tell something was up from my face, came over worried. A few days later, she wanted to know what happened at the baby shower and why I had left so early. I didn't want to spill the ugly details, so I just said, "It's the pregnancy hormones, Mom. I'm all right." But deep inside, I was far from all right. The argument had really shaken me, and I decided to keep all the hurt and nonsense to myself. A week later, Lindsay's name popped up on my phone. I couldn't help but feel anxious after what went down at the baby shower. I had no idea what Lindsay could want now. It was a text. "I'm really sorry for what happened at the baby shower, Meredith. My emotions got the best of me, and I said things I shouldn't have. I overreacted and deeply regret my words. Of course, I'd love to be a part of my grandchild's life. So here's my offer. When you're ready to welcome the baby, please drop me a message. I'd be crushed if I didn't get to meet the little one." I chose not to dwell on Lindsay's message. Forgiving her for her earlier accusations was enough for me, but her hurtful comments about the baby remained a nagging thought in my mind. I decided to set it aside as I had more pressing matters to attend to in the coming days. Then the long-awaited day arrived. My water broke and labor pains set in. My mom called Vicky to drive us to the hospital. I was admitted, and the whole delivery process began. Finally, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl and named her Hope. I couldn't help but notice how she had inherited her father's nose and lips. John's memory lived on through her. After spending a night at the hospital, the following day arrived and my emotions swelled. I wished John could be there with me, and it hit me hard. In a moment of overwhelming emotions, I decided to call Lindsay and Farrell. I just needed some connection to John, even if it was through his parents. Lindsay was super thankful on the phone. saying thank you a gazillion times and assuring me that she and Farrell would be at the hospital within an hour. After that call, I sent my mom and Vicky home to freshen up, deciding to catch a quick nap until Lindsay and Farrell arrived. When I woke up, I was met by a surprising sight. Farrell was standing right in front of me, but Lindsay was nowhere to be seen. As I glanced around, I realized that Hope, my precious baby, was also missing from the room. I panicked. "Where is Hope? Where is my baby?" I cried. "Calm down, Meredith," Farrell said. "Where did Lindsay take her? Please tell me she's with Lindsay." "Yes, she is. Lindsay was here just a minute ago before you woke up. She took the baby with her. Can you please ask Lindsay to bring her back into the room?" "Not yet." "What do you mean? Let's get started. I want to assure you that your daughter is fine for now." "What kind of sick prank is this? I trusted her and let her into the delivery room, and she does this." "Shush, shush. It's not a prank. Now listen to me and don't say a word until I'm done. Lindsay took the baby with her. I can't tell you where, but don't worry. You need to do something for me. Transfer all the money to my account now." "What's all this craziness for? Money? I want my baby back. I will call someone." "Try to shout, and I will text Lindsay. I can't assure your daughter's safety if you do." "All right, get me my phone. I will transfer everything I have to you." I took my phone, and my hands were shaking as I transferred the money to Farrell's account. Farrell checked his phone. "That's like a good daughter-in-law. Could you please call Lindsay and tell her to bring Hope back?" "Okay," I said, my voice trembling. Farrell left the room, leaving me with a lot of questions. Where was he off to? What did he plan to do with my little girl? Given my weakened state from the blood loss, I was terrified and desperate for answers. I couldn't move on my own. Frantic, I called Vicky and recounted the horrifying situation. She assured me that she would be there as soon as possible. Anxiety gripped me tightly as I sat in a room, helpless, waiting for Vicky to arrive. About 20 minutes later, a nurse entered the room, cradling Hope in her arms. Relief washed over me as I was finally reunited with my baby girl. "Wait, where was she? Is she okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Don't you know? She was with your mother-in-law. She just brought your daughter to me and told me to give her to you." "Do you know where she took her? Is she all right?" "I thought she was in the nursery, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't worry, your daughter is perfectly fine." "Oh, can I have her now?" "Of course." I held my precious baby girl close, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Vicky arrived not long after, and I shared the entire incident with her, not holding back. I even confided in her about the uncomfortable situation at the baby shower. Vicky was furious. A few days later, I was finally given the green light to go home. With everything out in the open and my mother having returned home, I made a significant decision. I couldn't let my in-laws get away with what they had done. They had taken my daughter from the hospital, even if it was just for about 45 minutes. After everything that went down, I knew I had to take some serious action. I hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Chris. Our first move was to gather any evidence we could find. Hospitals usually have security cameras everywhere, and we thought they might have captured what really happened with Hope and Lindsay. Chris worked his magic, and soon we were watching the security footage from his office. We could see Lindsay holding Hope and leaving the hospital. The timestamp on the video was crystal clear. My baby was taken away, even if just for a short time. It was a cold, hard fact staring us in the face. The video also showed Lindsay returning to the hospital later with Hope. This footage was gold for our case. Then there was the timing of the money transfer. It was the puzzle piece that clicked perfectly into place. The money moved when Hope was taken. Chris built a solid case, making it clear they messed up big time, and no one could ignore the evidence against them. Before I decided to bring in law enforcement to make this a full-blown legal case, I felt the need to have a conversation with Lindsay and Farrell. Vicky agreed to look after Hope while I went over to their place to confront them. "You seem to be enjoying that money I transferred, don't you?" I began. "That money is ours now." "Get over it," Farrell sneered. "You not only manipulated and blackmailed me into giving you what was rightfully mine, but you also kidnapped my daughter. Do you know that is a crime?" "Kidnapping is a strong word, Meredith. I just took her out for some fresh air, you know." "Lindsay, it's hard to understand your intentions. First, it's all about John's money. Then, at the baby shower, you accuse me of disrespecting him. Can you pick a side? Aren't you tired of playing the victim, the mother who lost her son, when all you seem to care about is the money? If John were here today, he would be ashamed and disgusted by you and what you did to me and his daughter. He would never have forgiven you. John's gone, Meredith. He's history. We couldn't care less. Time for you to get your pathetic life together as well. What a remarkable father you are, Farrell. If this is about money, you better leave. I only dropped by to give you a heads up. You'll be hearing from the cops soon enough, so better call your lawyer, Lindsay. As time ticked on, things started to look up. Lindsay and Farrell got what they deserved. The evidence was stacked against them. The security footage from the hospital and the timing of the money transfer all pointed to their guilt. Justice was served with a side of karma. They ended up in prison for a year and had to pay back every single cent they took from me. It wasn't just a win for me, but for Hope and John's memory too. With the money safely back in my account, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I sold our house, full of memories both good and bad. It was tough saying goodbye to that chapter of my life, but it needed to be done. I didn't want to live in the shadows of the past anymore. I moved to a snug neighborhood close to my parents' place. Having real family nearby was a game changer. I decided to put my experiences to good use. I joined support groups for single moms who had been through similar things. Being there for them helped me heal too. Every day is a new chapter in this single mom's journey. I wake up motivated to be the best mom I can be for Hope. I'm determined to provide Hope with a loving, stable, and happy life. Recently, I've been contemplating a career comeback now that I have my parents to look after Hope. I'll be diving into that soon. Each day as we create new memories together, I'm reminded that we can find light even in the darkest of times. Hope has brought warmth and purpose back into my life, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Hello there, I'm Stacy, a 37-year-old wife and mom. My husband Eric and I were hosting a family event at our home to welcome back none other than the infamous Uncle Isaac, my brother-in-law, after his 5-year stint in the slammer. Yes, you heard that right. Prison, the big house. But before you start judging him and our family, know that Isaac had been falsely imprisoned. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. It took 5 long years of fighting for his case to finally be reviewed properly and for him to be exonerated. You can imagine the excitement in the air as we prepared to reunite the family. The party was in full swing, and everyone seemed to be having a grand old time. Isaac was, of course, the center of attention, catching up with everyone and regaling us with stories from his time behind bars. He had a special bond with my daughter Wendy, who used to be close to him before the unfortunate incident that led to his incarceration. Laughter and animated conversations filled the house, and the aroma of delicious food permeated the air as we indulged in a feast fit for a king. It was a rare moment of joy and togetherness for our family, and I relished the warmth it brought to my heart. After the event, as everyone left, we were still buzzing with excitement, grateful to see Isaac alive, happy, and well after his unjust imprisonment. Life resumed its usual rhythm, and it seemed like the storm of family drama had subsided, at least temporarily. However, the elation following Isaac's return was short-lived. A couple of days after the event, as I sat in a living room engrossed in a book, Wendy burst through the door with a look of fear and anger etched across her face. Startled, I quickly put my book aside and rushed to her side. "Wendy, what's wrong? You look terrified. Talk to me." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she gasped for breath. "Mom, I found a hidden camera in one of my plants." My heart skipped a beat and a wave of dread washed over me. A hidden camera in my daughter's sanctuary? Anger surged within me, but I had to remain calm for Wendy's sake. We made our way to her room, my mind racing with a million thoughts and questions. Sure enough, there it was, concealed amidst the lush foliage of her favorite plant. A tiny camera peering into her private moments, violating her sense of security. How long had this camera been there? I felt a mixture of disgust, fear, and anger bubbling up inside me. Without wasting a moment, I called Eric, my voice trembling with a mix of emotions, and relayed the horrifying news. "Eric, you won't believe what I've just discovered. There's a hidden camera in Wendy's room. We need to do something about this now." His voice held a mix of concern and fury. "I'll be right there, Stacy. We're not going to let this go. Our daughter deserves her privacy, and whoever is responsible for this will face the consequences." As we waited for Eric to arrive, Wendy clung to me, her tears dampening my shirt. She blamed herself for not noticing the intrusion sooner, but I reassured her that it wasn't her fault. I vowed to stand by her side and get to the bottom of this unsettling ordeal. When Eric finally joined us, his eyes mirrored our emotions, a simmering rage masked by a controlled exterior. We examined the camera meticulously, looking for any clues that could lead us to the perpetrator. It was a violation of trust that cut deep, and we were determined to uncover the truth. The invasion of our sanctuary shattered the illusion of safety we had built around our family. We had to act swiftly, not only for our daughter's well-being, but also to protect our sense of security. If Wendy found one camera in her room, who knows how many other cameras could be lurking around our home? We won't rest until we find out who did this, Wendy. Don't you worry. Thanks, Mom. If you don't mind, could I please take a nap in the guest room? I don't feel comfortable in mine, and I'm exhausted right now. Of course, my baby. Do what makes you feel comfortable. I'm so sorry. Wendy trudged to the guest room, undoubtedly wanting some alone time after her privacy had been invaded so maliciously. Who would do such a thing? We'll review the footage, gather any evidence we might find, and involve the authorities if necessary. No one messes with our family like this. Although I was shaken, I found solace in our united front. Eric and I sat down in the quiet of our living room, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. Our minds swirled with thoughts, trying to piece together the puzzle of who could have planted the hidden camera in Wendy's room. As we explored the possibilities, one name surfaced and lingered: Isaac. I began cautiously, trying to keep my voice level. It's hard to ignore the timing. The camera was most likely planted during the family gathering, and who had the opportunity? Isaac. Stacy, you can't seriously think Isaac would stoop so low. Yes, he made some mistakes in the past, but he's not a creep. He's my brother, for crying out loud. I understood Eric's reaction. Family ties run deep, and the idea of suspecting one's kin of such a violation is unfathomable. However, I couldn't ignore the pieces of the puzzle that seemed to align with Isaac's presence during the family gathering. Prison changes people, and the prolonged interactions between Wendy and Uncle Isaac were ringing alarm bells in both Eric and me, even if Eric was too stubborn to admit it. Gathering my thoughts, I spoke gently but firmly. Eric, I know it's difficult to consider, but we have to face the facts. He spent a significant amount of time with Wendy during the gathering, suggesting somewhat of an interest in her. And let's not forget that he just came out of prison. People change, and their actions can be influenced by their experiences. It's our responsibility to protect our daughter, even if it means questioning those closest to us. Eric's shoulders slumped as the weight of the situation bore down on him. He looked torn between loyalty and the cold hard facts. Slowly he nodded, his voice tinged with a mix of resignation and discomfort. I don't want to believe it, Stacy, but you're right. The timing is uncanny, and it's hard to ignore. We need to find out the truth for Wendy's sake. The thought of confronting Isaac about this betrayal gnawed at our conscience, but it had to be done. The sanctity of our home and the well-being of our daughter depended on it. As we prepared ourselves for the difficult task ahead, we promised each other that we would approach this with caution and compassion. We needed to uncover the truth, not only for our peace of mind, but also to protect Wendy from any further harm. Days turned into nights, and Eric remained torn between loyalty to his brother and the unsettling suspicion that hung in the air. The weight of the situation pressed upon us, straining our relationship with Isaac and casting a shadow over our family. As we navigated the treacherous waters of uncertainty, a plan began to form in my mind, a risky yet necessary plan to catch the culprit red-handed. I approached Eric with my idea, explaining that hosting another family gathering might be the key to uncovering the truth. Think about it, Eric. Whoever planted that camera would most likely seize any opportunity to retrieve it. This event, purely meant for family togetherness, presents the perfect chance for the culprit to strike again. Eric hesitated, his emotions still tangled in a web of conflicting loyalties. But as I laid out the logic and the urgency of our situation, he eventually agreed that we needed to exhaust all possibilities before involving the authorities. It was a difficult decision, but one we had to make to safeguard our family and restore our sense of security. I picked up the phone and dialed Tina, number, Isaac's wife. Hey Tina, we were thinking of hosting another family get-together. Just wanted to see if you and Isaac would be available. Tina, response was almost too enthusiastic. She eagerly agreed, expressing her excitement for yet another family gathering. It struck me as a bit odd, considering she was normally the reserved type, but I pushed those thoughts aside, attributing her behavior to a genuine love for family bonding. With the plan set in motion, Eric and I busied ourselves with the preparations. Our home once again became a hub of anticipation and unease. Every nook and cranny was checked and rechecked for any signs of intrusion. We aimed to create an atmosphere of normalcy, hiding our true intentions beneath layers of hospitality and warmth. The stakes were high, and the fate of our family hung in the balance. As the day of the gathering approached, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and determination. We were walking a tightrope, unsure of what awaited us at the other end, but we were ready to face it head-on to protect our daughter and ensure the sanctity of our home. The day of the gathering arrived, and the familiar faces of our family members filled our home once again. The air crackled with anticipation, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. Uncle Isaac, ever the charismatic figure, greeted everyone with his charm. But his warmth was met with icy reserve from both Eric and me. Our suspicions hung heavy between us, casting a somber shadow over the event. To ensure Wendy's safety and protect her from any potential harm, we made the difficult decision to keep her away from the gathering by sending her on a sleepover at a friend's house. We assured her that it was for the best, not revealing the true nature of our fears. With her absence, our focus sharpened, and we resolved to keep a vigilant eye on anyone venturing in the direction of Wendy's room. As the party swung into motion, laughter and conversation filled the air, camouflaging our underlying mission. Eric and I played the role of gracious hosts, all the while scanning the crowd for any signs of suspicious behavior. Our sleuth game was on point. The night progressed, the rhythm of music and dance providing a backdrop to our hidden agenda. Amidst the festivities, I couldn't help but notice Tina's peculiar movements. She frequently excused herself, disappearing into the bathroom with a sense of urgency. My instincts sharpened, and I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Curiosity getting the better of me, I decided to approach Tina. As she made her way towards the bathroom once again, I followed discreetly, my heart pounding in my chest. To my surprise, instead of entering the bathroom, she veered off into Wendy's room. Panic welled up inside me, and I knew I had to confront her to uncover the truth hidden within the depths of her actions. Stepping forward, I called out her name, my voice holding a mix of accusation and concern, mirroring the conflicting emotions swirling within me. "Tina, what are you doing in Wendy's room?" Startled Tina turned around, her eyes darting around the room searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to hide from the truth. The silence between us grew heavy, pregnant with unspoken accusations. "I asked you a question, Tina. What are you doing in my daughter's room?" Tina, composure cracked, and tears welled up in her eyes. Her voice trembled as she stammered, "I was just looking for Wendy. I was surprised that she didn't join us for the festivities this time." "You were looking for her in her drawers," I said, my voice laced with incredulity. Tina looked down to find her hand still firmly planted in the drawer she was rummaging through. I can explain." "Save it." The one person we least expected, the one we had defended vehemently, had betrayed our trust. The room spun with a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. At that moment, I beckoned to Eric, who was not too far from me, and he hurried over, assuming that we had caught Isaac in Wendy's room. His jaw dropped when he saw that it was Tina. "You planted that camera, didn't you? Why, Tina? Why would you do such a thing?" Eric wasted no time and called Isaac over to Wendy's room, his voice firm and commanding. Isaac, sensing the urgency in his brother's tone, hurriedly made his way to the room, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on?" he asked. As Isaac entered the room, his eyes fell upon Tina, tears streaming down her face. Before he could utter another word, Eric quietly closed the door behind us, shielding the rest of the party from the unfolding drama. I took a deep breath, my voice steady as I began to explain everything. I recounted the shocking discovery of the camera in Wendy's room, the hidden invasion of our privacy that had shattered our trust. My words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of the truth. "We organized this gathering, Isaac, to catch the person responsible for planting the camera, and in all honesty, we suspected you initially. I'm so sorry, bro. I never should have doubted you." I just thought, with prison and all. Stop, it was mainly me who accused you, Isaac. I'm so sorry, but after I caught Tina, in here, I knew that you had nothing to do with it. Isaac's brows furrowed, his eyes flickering between Eric, Tina, and me. Confusion lingered in his gaze as his mind tried to grasp the gravity of the situation. He turned to Tina, seeking answers. Tina, why were you in Wendy's room? What's happening? We found Tina, rummaging through Wendy's belongings. She was the one who left the camera in there. Now that everyone was present, I looked at Tina and demanded, Tina, you need to explain yourself. Why would you do something like this? Tina, shoulders slumped as she looked at us, the weight of her actions clearly bearing down on her. Through her tears, she began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. I did it because I was jealous. Wendy is such a bright, beautiful girl, and seeing how everyone loves her, especially Isaac, I felt invisible. I thought if I could find something to tarnish her image, maybe I would feel better about myself. But I know now how wrong I was. I'm so sorry. The room fell into a stunned silence. The magnitude of Tina, betrayal and the pain it had caused was immense. Despite the hurt and anger, Eric and I knew we had to address this with compassion for the sake of our family. We'll need to involve the authorities, Eric said quietly, but first, we need to make sure Wendy is safe and knows that none of this is her fault. Isaac looked at Tina, a mixture of sadness and disappointment in his eyes. We'll get through this, but you need to understand the gravity of what you've done. Tina nodded, her tears flowing freely now, as she began to comprehend the full extent of her actions. The road ahead would be difficult, but our family's bond was strong, and we were determined to face it together, to heal and protect each other from any further harm. Tina, eyes darted around the room, seeking solace in her husband's support. But Isaac's face mirrored the shock and confusion that had gripped the room. He couldn't fathom why Tina would resort to such invasive measures, especially against her own family. Fine, you caught me. Yes, it was me who left the camera in Wendy's room. I was coming here to retrieve it. We know that. We caught you. We just want to know why, I demanded. It's because I'm jealous, okay. Tina. Confession hung in the air, her motives laid bare for all to see. She admitted, with a mixture of shame and frustration, that her actions stemmed from jealousy of Wendy. She had noticed Isaac and Wendy conversing frequently during the previous family gathering, which ignited the spark of envy within her. She questioned what made Wendy so special, what drew Isaac's attention and affection towards her. Isaac couldn't help but interject, his voice laced with both defensiveness and genuine concern. Tina, you know I love Wendy, but not in a creepy way or anything like that. Being an uncle is important to me. I was simply checking up on Wendy, making sure she was doing well. It was out of love and family concern, nothing sinister or inappropriate. You know that. Oh yeah, then why were you always praising Wendy, going on and on about how amazing she is and how well she's doing in school? It made me wonder what was so special about her. So you're acting crazy because I'm a proud uncle. Tina, tell me, is there something wrong with being a proud uncle? I have every right to appreciate and support Wendy. It's not about favoritism or anything more than genuine love for my niece. I didn't think that you feel this way, Tina mumbled. Trying to navigate through the tumultuous emotions in the room, I directed my attention to Tina. What were you hoping to uncover by planting the camera? What did you expect to find exactly? I just wanted to see how Wendy lives her life. Maybe if I could understand her better and emulate her actions, I could gain the same praise and attention from you, Isaac. I wanted to feel valued like her. You're jealous of a teenager. How low can you sink? This is beyond messed up, Eric said, his voice filled with disgust. After a silence that could put a library to shame, Eric decided to pull the plug on the party. It was a good call. The last thing we needed was to keep a party going after discovering Tina, true nature as the resident creep of the year. With the room now cleared of all the relatives, it was just Eric and me left to grapple with the aftermath of Tina's little escapade. It wasn't a pretty sight. I let loose on Tina, unleashing a verbal barrage that could make a sailor blush. Who does that? Who plants a damn camera in their niece's room? Sick in the head, that's who. Isaac stood there like a lost puppy, disappointment etched all over his face. I guess he couldn't fathom what kind of twisted game his beloved wife was playing. Can't say I blame him. I might be equally dumbfounded if my better half turned out to be a grade A lunatic. As the dust settled and our emotions ran dry, Eric and I found ourselves sitting in our once cheerful home, now tainted by the sinister acts of one family member. The next day, when Wendy came home, it was my job to spill the beans, to expose the whole twisted truth. Wendy's eyes welled up with tears as I recounted the heinous violation of her privacy. The poor girl, innocent and unsuspecting, couldn't fathom that someone in our own family could stoop so low. Trust shattered, her world turned upside down in an instant. She managed to choke out the words, her voice trembling with hurt and confusion. "Mom, I never thought that anyone would do this to me." "Tina? Seriously?" I shook my head, unable to wrap my mind around it. "Believe me, Wendy, none of us saw this coming." Tina, gone off the deep end for sure. With Wendy in my arms, her tears staining my shoulder, I made her a promise. "We're going to fight back. Pressing charges is just the beginning. Tina needs a reality check, and we're more than willing to deliver it." Her tearful gaze met mine, seeking reassurance. "But Mom, what about Uncle Isaac? How is he doing?" I sighed, the weight of our shattered family hanging heavy in the air. "If I'm being honest, he's not taking it well. He feels like he can't truly celebrate his freedom, knowing that he's married to a nut job." "So what does that mean? Is he getting a divorce?" "I don't have baby. Oh, I hate what she's done to this family." "Same. Right now, our priority is your safety. We're getting a restraining order against Tina, so she won't even dare to think about crossing your path again. We're in the process of pressing charges and obtaining a restraining order against Tina, the camera-wielding menace." Meanwhile, the once inseparable bond between Isaac and our family remains strained, shattered by the weight of this unimaginable betrayal. It's a painful and awkward silence that hangs between us, a reminder of the depths to which one person's jealousy can sink. But through it all, we remain steadfast, determined to rebuild, to heal, and to find solace in the love and support of those who truly matter. The road to recovery may be long and arduous, but we are ready to face whatever lies ahead, armed with the knowledge that our family's strength will prevail. I grew up in a middle-income family. Both of my parents had decent jobs, but they had 6 mouths to feed: themselves, me, and my 3 siblings. So we struggled a bit. Hand-me-down clothes were normal, and we often ate frozen and cheap meals. We only had a house because my grandmother left it to my dad. We lived in a nice neighborhood with families ranging from middle to high income. When I was born, the house next to ours was empty for a few years until a new family moved in. They had a son, John, who was my age. He was the only kid in the neighborhood my age, so even though he was homeschooled and I went to public school, our parents made sure we hung out together. His parents welcomed me, and John and I became close friends. Since I went to public school, I helped John learn to socialize with kids his age. His dad, William, appreciated this a lot, even though he didn't say it directly. Instead, he would send me home with food for my family and buy us small gifts. John's mom, Margaret, didn't like me as much. She thought William was too nice to me and not nice enough to their son. She made snide remarks and tried to stop William from giving me things. But he wouldn't listen and sometimes gave me even more just to spite her. This caused a lot of fights between them, which made John withdraw more. After months, I got him to open up to me when we were 13. We grew closer over the years, and I developed feelings for him, but never acted on them. When we were 17, John came to my house looking very upset after a huge fight with his mom. He told me she had said something really hurtful, but he couldn't bring himself to tell me what it was. I comforted him and reminded him to not let his anger ruin his relationship with his family, not knowing the full truth of their situation. After high school, we both went to the same college. I attended classes while John did distance learning. I had saved up enough money from working since I was 16 to rent an apartment with a bit of help from William. This allowed John and me to spend more time together without our parents around. Eventually, we realized we had strong feelings for each other and started dating. My parents were thrilled, while John's parents had more neutral reactions. William calmly congratulated us, and Margaret grunted in disapproval. We decided not to focus on his mother's reaction. After graduating college, John proposed to me and we got married within the year. I felt like I had won at life. My childhood best friend was now my husband. He was there for me from the start, and I loved him deeply. After we got married, John traveled a lot for work. He didn't want me to be alone, so he asked me to move in with his parents. I was hesitant because his mom never liked me, but John convinced me. I don't know about moving in with your parents. Your mom's never been a fan of me. I know, but we'd have our own space, a whole floor to ourselves. I want you to be safe, and being with my family will put my mind at ease. It's almost like living alone. They could visit, or I could visit them if they want. All right, if it means that much to you, I'll give it a shot. But I hope it doesn't make things worse. Thanks, babe. I promise I'll do my best to make sure everything goes smoothly. I knew his reasoning made no sense, but I agreed to make him feel better. Plus, my parents lived next door, so I could always go there if things got tough. The next month, we moved in with his parents. Quickly, I realized John hadn't been completely honest. I wasn't going to be alone with his parents. I'd be alone with his mother, Margaret, whenever John went on business trips at his dad's command. This meant I was stuck with the woman who hated me for days or weeks at a time. Margaret mostly made rude comments and sometimes didn't make food for me, even after asking what I wanted to eat. I'd usually be too tired from work to care. So I'd make a quick meal or order in. As long as I stayed in my room, nothing major happened. One day, John called and asked me to find a file in his office and scan it for him. While searching through his messy drawers, I noticed one felt different. It had a false bottom. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it to find a paternity test. It showed that William wasn't John's father. I was shocked. I never questioned John's paternity because he looked just like his mother. I wondered if William knew. Before my thoughts spiraled further, I took a picture of the test, put everything back, found the file John needed, sent him the scans, and went to my room. I spent hours trying not to think about what I'd just learned. I wanted to talk to John, but I preferred to do it in person. Just as I started to calm down, Margaret knocked on my door. "Come in." She entered with a scowl. "Yes, how can I help?" "Spare me the act. I know you found out our secret." "What are you talking about?" "Don't play games. I saw the false bottom open. I know you read the document." "Fine, you got me. But tell me, does William know?" "That old geezer doesn't know a thing. If he did, we'd be on the streets. All he ever wanted wasn't here. I got away with John not being his only because John looks like me. How could you deceive him after all he's done for you?" "Spare me your moral judgments. I'm not the only one betraying him. John's in on it too. He's used to this lifestyle and won't let it go." "That can't be right. What if I tell William everything?" "Oh please, you think you can ruin our game of pretend? I'd make William believe you're lying to cause chaos. He'll choose us over you any day. You won't get away with this forever. The truth will come out. Save your fairy tales for someone who cares. Good luck with that." She walked out, and my heart pounded. Margaret had answered all my questions. I was disgusted with both of them. How could John deceive the man who raised him? How long had he known? Did he feel any remorse? Would he go along with Margaret's plan to leave me? I barely slept that night, consumed by my thoughts. The next day passed in a haze. William had returned from his work trip, and I couldn't look him in the eye because of how guilty I felt. I wanted to tell him everything, but I knew that if I tried, Margaret would find a way to turn the tables on me and make me the bad guy. That night, William asked the three of us to have dinner together. I silently ate my food except when William asked me questions about work. At some point during dinner, Margaret brought up wanting to go on a vacation with John. "William, I've been missing John, and I think it'll be a great idea for us to go on a 2-week trip to Italy together. John has been working hard. He does deserve a break." "Doesn't John have a lot of work commitments? I mean, I'm no expert, but won't his absence affect the business?" "Please, William managed the business for years before John joined. A short break won't hurt." "That's true, and John could use some time off." "All right, you can go, and I'll handle things here." "Thank you, dear Maria. Why don't you join them?" "Oh, that won't work. It's supposed to be a mother-son bonding time. Besides, I feel like a third wheel." "Well, what do you think, Maria? Would you like to join them?" "Oh, she probably has her own plans. Don't worry about her. Let's allow Maria to make that decision." I knew why Margaret wanted to go on this trip. I was about to say that I wasn't okay with it, but I felt a sharp kick in my shin. I winced in pain as I realized that Margaret had kicked me under the table. I looked at her and noticed her sharp glare. I wanted to tell on her so badly, but I knew it wouldn't lead anywhere. Then I had a brilliant idea. I could use their time away to tell William everything. So I shut my mouth and nodded that I was okay with the trip. Margaret looked satisfied, and William told her she was free to go. That night, I called John and asked him about the trip. Are you going on this trip with your mother? Yeah, I don't really have a choice. That's not true. You do have a choice. You can choose not to go along with her plans. Everything is so messed up, and honestly, a lot of it is because of you. What do you mean? How is any of this my fault? If you had respected my privacy back then, none of this would have happened. There's a reason I didn't tell you about everything. When did you even find out you're not William's son? Remember a couple of years ago when I came over to your place really distressed because of a huge fight I had with my mom? Yeah, she dropped that bomb on me during that fight. Did you consider telling William about it? I did. I even threatened her to spill the secret, but she laughed it off, saying if I told William, he'd throw us out. So we're stuck keeping this secret. Now that you know, I can't keep you around anymore. Did our relationship mean anything to you at all? Of course it did. But when you found out about the secret, I knew I had to let you go. Your strong conscience could ruin everything I've been working for. With that, he hung up the call. I couldn't believe this was the man I had loved. Was this always a part of him, or had he become this way out of greed? I cried myself to sleep that night, feeling betrayed and heartbroken. How could he let go of me so easily? I had treated him like the most precious thing, while he saw me as disposable. I woke the next morning fully ready to take revenge. John had returned home that morning and silently packed his bags for his vacation. He and Margaret were set to leave in the afternoon. I didn't spare him a glance. My heart hurt, but I knew I was doing the right thing. William had gone on another short business trip for the next 2 days, so I had to wait for him to come back to start my plan. After John and Margaret left, I busied myself by looking through their stuff. Unsurprisingly, the false bottom in John's drawer was empty. Margaret must have gotten rid of the file. It was okay though, I had a picture of it. I waited to collect evidence of what John and Margaret were up to, and sure enough, John posted stories on his private Instagram account, which only his closest friends and family followed. He posted stories of him going on dates with multiple other women and even posted a story thanking his mother for introducing him to so many wonderful women. Even though my heart was breaking and anger was boiling under my skin, I took screenshots of every story. Then I called William and told him I had an emergency and needed him home immediately. William assured me he would be home by nighttime. True to his word, he showed up by 9:00 p.m. He hurried over to me and asked if everything was okay. I told him that I was not okay and revealed the real reason why Margaret and John had gone on that trip, to find John a new wife. William looked shocked and asked if I was serious. I showed him the screenshots. William's shock turned to anger and disgust. He stuttered as he asked why they would do this. I told him I had something important to tell him but needed him to sit down for it. He sat down and fearfully asked what I had to say. I took out the printout of the picture of the paternity test and showed it to him. William sat there silently for a while, processing what he was reading. I gave him some time before telling him everything I had found out in the past few days. William's hurt turned to anger. Without a word, he called up his banks and canceled his credit cards, knowing that Margaret and John depended on them for their travel expenses. He also canceled John's office card, so they had no money that way either. Once he was done, William felt slightly calmer. I apologized for throwing everything at him at once. I'm so sorry, William. None of this should have happened. There's no need for you to apologize. I never imagined Margaret could go to such lengths. I'm glad this revelation happened while I'm still in control of the business. What are your plans now? I'm worried John and Margaret might try to come back. I've made up my mind. I'm going to divorce Margaret and remove both of them from this house. I'm with you on the divorce. I'll also file one against John. I'll move out too. No, Maria, you're not going anywhere. If you're willing, I'd like to pass the business down to you. I've always seen you as a daughter, and I trust you to carry on her legacy. William, I don't know what to say. I'd be honored to continue what you've built. That's settled then. We'll make this right together, Maria. The days after that were filled with sadness and anger. William filed for divorce, and so did I. Margaret and John tried contacting us, but neither of us picked up the calls or answered the texts. William managed to pull some strings and got us both restraining orders against Margaret and John. When the calls got too annoying, I finally picked up. What the hell did you tell my dad, Maria? I haven't said anything to him. Then why are his cards canceled and our numbers blocked? What have you done? I didn't tell him anything. I just showed him the proof. That's impossible. I burned it all. Not everything. I had enough evidence. I took a photo of the document you thought you destroyed. You're heartless for doing this to us. Huh? You're the heartless one. You and Margaret chose to keep this secret from William. You have to face the consequences of your actions. You're tearing our family apart. No, you're doing it. It's the truth that's finally coming out. It's time to take responsibility. I hung up the call and blocked John and Margaret. In the weeks that followed, William and I sent our divorce papers to our respective partners. William had all of John's and Margaret's things packed and put away in a storage facility. He gave them 1 month to show up and take their things, or they would have to pay to keep their belongings there. I quit my job and began focusing on working with William. It was hard for both of us to forget everything that had happened. But we knew that at the end of the day, we still had each other. I began to enjoy work, and the benefits I got from working with William were only a bonus. So that is my story. Thank you for listening till the end. I hope that no matter what life throws your way, you always remember to do what's right, because you never know how life will reward you. Hello, wonderful folks. I'm Victoria, and I'm one of the older members here. I see many of you sharing stories about your horrible mothers-in-law, and I feel for you. I was fortunate to have an amazing mother-in-law and always strived to be like her. So when my son Daniel introduced me to his girlfriend, Melissa, I was warm and welcoming. As a middle-class widow with no one except my son, I was excited to welcome Melissa into our family. However, she wasn't interested in having a relationship with me. I tried to arrange lunches and dinners, but she always declined, saying we had different tastes. Victoria, I don't think it's a good idea for us to go out, Melissa would say. It's okay, Melissa. I know I'm old, but I can still adapt. Maybe you can teach me a few things, I responded, hopeful. It's not about your age, Victoria. It's about your class. You're just a poor old lady comfortable with a trashy lifestyle. I'm not so cheap as you. I'm just glad Daniel didn't turn out like you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dated him. My parents and I belong to the upper class, and I just can't mix with anyone beneath us. I hope you understand and stop trying to get close to me. It just won't happen. To say I was hurt would be an understatement. I had hoped for a good relationship with my daughter-in-law, but she thought I was beneath her. I lost my husband at a young age and raised my son alone. I never remarried because my husband was everything to me. I remained poor but did my best to give Daniel everything he needed. He is a great son who made it big in the world and often offered to help me, but I always declined. I was content with my life. Still, Melissa's words stung, and I never tried to ask her out again. After Daniel and Melissa got married, things worsened. She slowly excluded me from their lives, never inviting me to their events. I missed my son's promotion celebration, their anniversaries, birthdays, and other gatherings. My son expressed his disappointment with his wife and even considered separating from her because she had become controlling and didn't want him to stay in contact with me. I advised him not to make any rash decisions and to give his wife a few more chances. Separation was off the table soon, as Melissa became pregnant with a daughter. But even after that, nothing changed. She excluded me from the baby shower and gender reveal and didn't let me meet the baby at the hospital. I never complained because I didn't want to cause trouble. For 6 years, I continued to be excluded from my own son's family. I did manage to have a great relationship with my granddaughter, but Melissa began to put a stop to that too. I was at my wit's end and suspected Melissa was planning something drastic. My suspicions were confirmed when Daniel showed up at my house looking very downcast. Daniel, you don't look well. What's the matter? Is something going on? Mom, I just can't do this anymore. I've tried everything, but things are only getting worse. I can't even talk to you without worrying about starting a fight at home. Is Melissa creating problems again? Daniel, it's breaking my heart to see you like this. You don't have to come to see me if it means your troubles will get worse. Mom, I need you in my life. I don't like the way Melissa has been trying to control me. I've been unhappy in this marriage for a long time now. I never thought she would create a divide between us. I even overheard her talking to her sister about how she planned to stop you from seeing my daughter. I was taken aback by Daniel's words, though not entirely surprised. Melissa had been acting very strangely, always making excuses when I asked to see my granddaughter. I had even offered to come by and see them, but she was always either busy or out with the baby. It was already suspicious, and now I was very anxious about what Melissa had planned. Daniel, did you confront her about this? What does she even have to say for herself? Mom, what can I say to her? I always suspected Melissa was going behind my back, making decisions without consulting me. If I question her, she just screams at me and throws things. It traumatizes our daughter as well. That is not okay, Daniel. Look, if you don't want your child around me, I would understand. There can be many reasons why you might feel I shouldn't be in your daughter's life. I will respect your wishes. Mom, are you crazy? Why would I ever do that? You are the best grandma and the best mother ever. I have absolutely no reason to stop my daughter from seeing you. Hell, my daughter would be devastated if her mother went through with this plan. Daniel looked stricken with grief and anger. It broke my heart to see my poor son suffering so much. He had truly made a big mistake in choosing his life partner, and I wish I had warned him. I didn't want to meddle in my son's relationship, so I kept my mouth shut. I didn't protest when Daniel pulled away from me because of his wife. I wanted him to be happy, even if it meant losing contact with him. Had I known what a horrible situation my son was in, I would have helped him sooner. I comforted him and said, Daniel, ignoring these problems and remaining quiet is not a solution. You are clearly miserable and need help. You need to stand up to your wife for a bit. If she loves you, she will be willing to change. Mom, that is never going to happen. I've begged her multiple times to get help. I suggested couples counseling and other things, but she just doesn't listen to me. I did my best, but I think it's time to cut my losses. I only see divorce as the ultimate solution. I think you should consider all aspects before you make a decision. Why don't you go home and try to talk to Melissa one last time? After that, I will support whatever decision you make. Melissa was a pretty wretched woman, but she was still Daniel's wife. Even if she didn't like me, I would have been happy if my son was happy. But Melissa had been really toxic towards my son, which became clear to me that day. I believe everyone should be given a last chance before being punished for their actions. For their child's sake, I hoped she would come to her senses and improve her behavior. My son was desperate for a change. I will give her one chance. I'll talk to her and lay down my terms. If she doesn't listen and tries to cut you out again, I will file for divorce. I'll talk to a lawyer and have the paperwork ready. I will only file if and when she messes up. Promise me you will let me know if that happens. I promise I will let you know, Daniel. I can see that you are extremely unhappy and I feel really bad for you. I don't want you to live like this. If Melissa doesn't improve her behavior, I'm afraid it will start to affect my granddaughter as well. That is exactly why I have been considering divorce. You asked me to give her one chance, so I'm doing that. But if she tries to act smart, I won't have any second thoughts. I agreed with Daniel because I really didn't want him to be unhappy. If Melissa continued to be uncooperative and entitled, he deserved to separate from her and live a healthy life. I wanted my grandchild to have a healthy home life as well. Daniel went home and talked to his wife about their problems. To no one's surprise, she blew up at him, calling him names and accusing him of choosing his mother over her. They had a massive fight. However, this time things turned out a little differently. Melissa saw that Daniel wasn't backing down or caving into her demands. He was adamant about standing up against her, which was a big blow to her. Daniel later told me, Melissa didn't expect me to stand my ground, Mom. I think that's part of the reason why she asked for a second chance and promised to improve herself. She even promised not to cut you off from our daughter. It sounds too good to be true, Daniel. I have this gut feeling Melissa's just lying to pacify you. I won't lie, Daniel, but I feel the same way. Still, she has asked for a chance. Give it to her and wait to see if things get better. I'm doing that, Mom, but I'm also talking to my lawyer just in case. I will get the paperwork done. You don't have Melissa like I do, Mom. I can see right through her. She won't keep her promise to me, I just know it. The weariness in Daniel's voice really did break my heart. For years, I nursed my own wounds caused by Melissa and was unable to bear her behavior. I had no idea how much worse my son had it with her. She had completely broken his spirit and didn't even acknowledge her wrongs. Straight away, Melissa was a heartless woman, and Daniel was right about her. What Melissa did next proved Daniel's fears were justified. About 2 weeks later, I called Melissa to tell her I was coming over. It had been a while since I had seen my granddaughter, and I decided it was time for a visit. I knew they were out of school for summer break and had plenty of time to hang out with me. Plus, Melissa had promised Daniel not to cut me off from my granddaughter, so I didn't need her permission to see them, and she didn't bother to stop me. I thought maybe Melissa was finally letting go of her controlling behavior and whatever anger she had towards me. Oh boy, was I wrong. When I rang the doorbell at my son's house, Melissa opened the door but didn't ask me to come in. "What do you want, Victoria?" "Daniel is not home, and I'm kind of busy right now. I've come to see my granddaughter. It has been a long time since I've seen her. I was missing her, so I thought I would drop by." "I don't think this is a good idea, Victoria. My daughter is not available right now. Sorry to say that you can't see her today." I was a little taken aback to see the same version of Melissa that I saw last time. Daniel had been telling me that Melissa was acting well at home, but he didn't trust her completely. I thought he was being a little paranoid. Nope, my son was right. Melissa showed no signs of change whatsoever. Since I was already at her home, I decided to try my luck again. I said in a serious tone, "Melissa, I know my granddaughter is not at school. Her school is on summer break, and I asked Daniel before I came here. He confirmed that my granddaughter is home." "Well, yes, she is home, but you still can't see her." "What? Why not? You have been keeping my grandchild away from me for a while now. I won't pretend that I didn't notice, but I don't understand what the problem is." "Melissa, you need to tell me why I can't see my own grandchild. Because I don't want you to see her ever again. She's my daughter, and I get to make those decisions as I please. And I've decided not to let her mingle with you anymore." "You are still not telling me why you're doing this, Melissa. This is unfair and unjust both to me and to your own daughter. Don't you dare tell me what's right for my daughter. The reason for you not to see her anymore is simple. My child doesn't need to be around a loser like you." Melissa said this with so much venom that I found myself taking a step back in shock. She straight up called me a loser and told me that my granddaughter shouldn't be associated with someone like me. She made me feel small and unworthy of being in my own family's life. I was humiliated but also extremely angry. I asked Melissa angrily, "What the hell does that mean, Melissa? Why are you calling me a loser and insulting me like this? What makes you think this is okay? You need to explain yourself. Do I need to go into details about how unworthy you are of associating with us? You are a poor woman with no wealth or social status. We have a good reputation in this city, Victoria. Your son works in a high position at his office, and my daughter goes to the most prestigious private school here. I am also a woman of high status. Our family is simply too above you and your trash lifestyle. If anyone had ever told me that people could be so cruel towards their own family, I wouldn't have believed them. But I was wrong about the world. People like Melissa simply didn't care about anything other than material wealth and status. Yes, I was a poor woman. I'm still a poor woman. My son had offered me a lot of things, but I had declined his help. I wanted him to have the best life possible without having to shoulder my responsibilities. I didn't care about my lifestyle at all. I was never interested in climbing up the social ladder and living in luxury. My simple life was good enough for me, especially since I didn't have to depend on anyone. I had no idea that would become a problem for Melissa. I had no idea that my simple life would prevent me from being in my own granddaughter's life. I was shocked and hurt. I said, "What does my simply life have to do with my granddaughter? I know I can't give her much material stuff, but her dad already does that for me. She doesn't even complain when I don't bring her extravagant gifts." That's the problem, Victoria. I don't want your trash life rubbing off on my daughter in any way. It's already pretty embarrassing that everyone knows Daniel's mom is a freaking loser. If my daughter continues to have you in her life, she might end up being a loser like you. I want her to be successful like me and her father. I can't risk her becoming like you. You are being extremely shallow and unfair, Melissa. None of what you said will happen. My granddaughter needs to have her grandma in her life. You need family too, along with material wealth. She already has a set of good grandparents, Victoria. My parents are rich and come from a high-status family. Their love and influence will be perfect for my little daughter. She doesn't need you in her life, and we don't need you in our lives either. We have plenty of money and connections to have a good life. I was absolutely fuming with what Melissa said. It was at that moment I realized how messed up she was. No wonder my son was at the end of his wits. Since I didn't see Melissa much, I didn't know how shallow and superficial she could be. I was actually thanking my lucky stars that I didn't have to deal with her more than I had. It also made it clear to me how miserable my son really was, living with her all the time. Everything that came out of Melissa's mouth sealed my resolve to encourage my son to divorce her. With my mind made up, I smiled at Melissa and gently told her, "I think you are a little wrong in your assumption, Melissa. My son has a lot of wealth, but from what I gather, you don't have a penny to your name right now. You're already drowning in credit card bills." "What the hell do you mean? I'm married to Daniel, so his money is my money too. I have the sole right to owe his wealth. I'm his wife, after all." "Well, you won't be his wife for long, Melissa. Actually, my son is going to file for divorce very soon. I hope you remember that you signed a prenup, and that prenup clearly said that you won't get anything from him in case of a divorce." Melissa looked scared for a while before she schooled her expression back to normal. She looked at me very nonchalantly as if what I was saying was far-fetched and impossible. But I could tell she was nervous, especially because she knew that Daniel had already warned her about a divorce if she didn't behave. She looked at me dismissively and said, "You can dream on, Victoria. Daniel would never divorce me. He won't be able to be without me. I can control him well enough. Did you forget how I made him limit contact with you?" "Yes, you did throw a tantrum to make him limit contact with me, but he only agreed because I wanted him to save his marriage with you." That was actually the first time it hit Daniel what a messed up woman you are. Over the years, all of your controlling behavior slowly made him consider divorce. Oh, he can consider divorce all he wants, Victoria. I know for a fact that he will never go through with it. He won't destroy our perfect family and leave me destitute. You can believe what you want, Melissa. Don't say I didn't warn you. I will be leaving today without seeing my granddaughter because I know I will be able to see her soon. As soon as my son divorces you, I will be back in my granddaughter's life. For now, I'll let you have this last power move." I turned around to leave as Melissa went back into the house which soon wouldn't even be hers anymore. I got into my car without any regret and called my son right away. When he picked up, he already sounded weary and resigned. He said in a troubled voice, "Let me guess, Mom. Melissa didn't allow you to see my daughter. She did exactly what she wanted to do and took no consideration of mine or our daughter's feelings." "You're right, Daniel. Apparently, she didn't want her loser mother-in-law to influence her daughter to live like a poor person. So she thought cutting me off would be better and spare your family from the humiliation of having a loser grandma like me." "What the hell, Mom? She said that to you? Oh God, what is even wrong with her? I can't believe she would say these things to my own mother. I'm so sorry you had to hear those things, Mom. I can assure you it's not true. You are the best mom and grandma ever." "I don't think I'm the best mom or grandma, Daniel. I wasn't attentive enough to know how miserable you were in your marriage. If I had known before, I wouldn't have advised you to give Melissa so many chances. I'm sorry for not being a better guardian. I guess you were right, divorce would be a good move for you. Don't blame yourself, Mom. I was equally responsible for not telling you everything about my life and just going along with Melissa to keep the peace. That won't happen anymore. I will file for divorce today itself. I'm done being manipulated and I'm done raising my daughter in a toxic household. We both deserve better." That night, Daniel showed up at my door with his clothes, and he brought my granddaughter along as well. He had filed for divorce and told Melissa about it. Apparently, Melissa had flipped out and started to attack Daniel for leaving her. She didn't want to get a divorce and lose Daniel's money that she had been relying on. They started off having an argument until it escalated, and Daniel had to call the cops on his wife. Yes, she was hitting him in front of their daughter, who was crying her eyes out. My poor granddaughter was traumatized and was clutching my son because she was scared her father was hurt. What followed after that night was truly shocking. Melissa went to take her parents' help to make Daniel stay. Like I said, she didn't even have the money for a lawyer and thought her parents would be of help. Imagine her surprise when her parents closed the door in her face and told her to never contact them again. Also, she had been disinherited a while back. Now, why did her parents take such a drastic step? Well, they didn't support her entitled and abusive behavior. They were furious with her for hitting my son and traumatizing our granddaughter. Something else came out as well, which they had told us and the CPS workers. Melissa was abusing my granddaughter. She was starving her because she didn't want her to get fat. A lot of other things came out, and Melissa lost custody of her daughter. I won't go into detail about their messy divorce and all the details of abuse that came out in court. I'll just say that they were able to get divorced in a year. Melissa lost custody, and Daniel got my granddaughter full-time. I moved in with him to help out. Both Daniel and my granddaughter are in therapy, and my son actually had a protective order against Melissa for the physical abuse. Shortly before the divorce was finalized, Melissa had shown up at my door to beg me for forgiveness. She wanted my help to get her marriage and child back. Suffice it to say, I kicked her out instantly. Right now, I'm having a good life with my son and granddaughter, who are happy to be rid of that horrible woman. It looks like we will be okay, while Melissa is off working at a convenience store after losing everything and becoming the poor loser she didn't want to be.
Hello, my name is Diana, and I'm a 40-year-old woman. The past 5 years have been quite eventful, and I recently experienced what karmic justice truly feels like. After seeing many stories shared here, I decided it was time to share mine. My story begins with my ex-husband, Chase. We met in college and dated for about 2 years. Our plan was to move in together after graduation and wait a few more years before getting married. However, I became pregnant almost immediately after we moved in together. Neither of us wanted to terminate the pregnancy, so we adjusted our life plans and welcomed our beautiful baby girl, Serena. Serena was the light of my life. She was incredibly smart, charming, and full of energy. She loved socializing and always had an abundance of energy, which she often expended by helping me around the house. While Serena was a joy to be around, Chase and I began to have issues. Since her birth, Chase rarely stayed home to help with Serena. He barely had a relationship with her, and we frequently fought about it. His primary concern was always money and how it was being spent. We both had well-paying jobs and were financially stable, always up to date on our bills with some money left over each month. I put this extra money into a savings account for Serena's future, like her college fund. Chase was upset that he couldn't spend this money and often complained, despite having his own monthly allowance. Things improved slightly when Chase got a promotion. I let him keep his extra money to avoid arguments, and with this financial boost, he started paying more attention to Serena. It angered me that money was the motivator, but it was better than him ignoring her completely. For the next 10 years, life seemed to improve. Chase and I got along better, and Serena blossomed into a beautiful young girl. I was nervous about her teenage years, but something much worse happened. My once lively and energetic daughter became lethargic, unable to stay awake for more than 3 to 4 hours at a time. Her grades, which were always A's, started slipping to C's. I tried talking to her, but she insisted everything was fine. The breaking point came when her teachers called, concerned that Serena was sleeping in class and struggling to stay awake. I sat her down, and she admitted that she felt fuzzy in her head and couldn't stay awake without experiencing severe headaches. Deeply worried, I shared my concerns with Chase that night. "Chase, I think something is really wrong with Serena," I said. "What do you mean?" he replied. "She's getting paler and weaker by the day. She doesn't have a temperature, but even the smallest tasks exhaust her. I asked her to tidy up her room, and she fell asleep immediately after, waking only for dinner. She's also sleeping in class and constantly late. Maybe she's just tired from the day," Chase suggested. "No, it's more than that. She's stuck in a constant state of lethargy. I've spoken to her, and she says she feels drowsy all the time and doesn't know how to cope." "She's probably just going through puberty," he shrugged. "I don't think this is puberty. We need to take her to a doctor," I insisted. "That's unnecessary. It'll cost a lot of money just for the doctor to tell us it's normal teenage stuff. What's more important, money or our daughter? We have health insurance, and I'll cover whatever else is needed." "Fine, but the money's coming out of your pocket," he conceded. I couldn't believe Chase was so concerned about the cost when our daughter's health was at stake. Trusting my instincts, I took Serena to the doctor the next morning despite her protests. She was honest with the doctor about her symptoms. The doctor ordered blood work and scheduled an MRI to get to the root of the problem. Over the next few weeks, Serena and I were in and out of the hospital constantly, learning little about her condition. With each visit, the tests became more intense, and the atmosphere grew more tense and panicked. My stomach churned with anxiety, sensing that something was gravely wrong. But I knew I had to stay strong for Serena. Chase was no help during this time. He only berated me for wasting time and money. I learned to tune out his rants. Finally, after another round of blood work and scans, the doctor informed us that he would call me in the evening with the results. I spent the day pacing, waiting anxiously for the call. When it finally came, nothing could have prepared me for the shock. The doctor revealed that Serena had an early stage of brain cancer, and we were fortunate to have detected it early. It felt like ice water had been poured over me. I listened to the doctor in a daze and thanked him for his care. Chase knew I had received the call and decided to ask me about it, tauntingly. What happened? What did the doctor say? Did you waste a bunch of money like I told you? Serena has a tumor in her brain, and it's cancerous, I replied. What? My poor baby. She's been suffering for so long. How will I even break this news to her? Wait, how far along is the cancer? Thankfully, it's still very treatable. She'll need surgery and chemotherapy. Thank God I took her issues seriously, right? So we're going through with the treatments for her then. What kind of question is that? Of course we are. I'm not going to let my daughter die. That's one more expense we have to shoulder now. I always told her not to be on her phone all the time. Are you serious right now? Are you really valuing money over our daughter? Look, I get that you're being overly emotional about this, but at some point you're going to have to think logically about how this will affect us. What are you talking about? How am I not supposed to be emotional? This is our child. We've watched her grow up and been with her through every up and down. How can you be so emotionless? It's not that deep. Yes, I feel sad too. I don't think Serena deserves to go through this, but really, we're already struggling as a family, and the costs of her treatments will be very hard for us to handle. Great. So what do you propose we do? Not give our daughter the life-saving treatment she needs. Don't try to make me into a bad person here. Oh, believe me, you're doing that all on your own. You want to know how we could work around the cost of her treatments. For starters, you can stop eating out for lunch every day. Stop going on long drives in that gas-guzzling car of yours. Stop going out to drink with your work buddies every other day. Why are you behaving as if our daughter is the issue here rather than you? You're clearly deranged. Even if I stopped all of that, it would never cost as much as Serena's treatments, and you know it. Money saved is better than money spent, no matter how small the amount. That's a stupid thing to say. You know what? We were already struggling to begin with, and now you're asking me to give up the only things that were keeping me sane. I don't want to do this anymore. What are you talking about? It's way too expensive to look after Serena, and I don't want to be destitute. I'm just going to leave. I'll start the filing process for divorce tomorrow, and you'll get the papers whenever you do. You can't just leave me like that. Since you know just how to save money, I'm sure you'll figure it out all on your own. I'm going to go now. Bye. Chase took the packed suitcase from his wardrobe and left the house. I could barely process what I had been told about Serena, let alone my husband leaving me because he felt he deserved to spend all his money on himself. He didn't hesitate to put himself first, showing no empathy for Serena or concern for how I was coping. I cried myself to sleep that night, and when I woke up the next day, I hoped that everything had been a terrible dream, but it wasn't. Despite Chase's behavior, I thought it would be better for Serena to have him around, especially since I had no idea how to break the news of our impending divorce to her. So I called Chase, hoping to convince him to stay. He didn't pick up the first 3 times, but on the 4th try he answered. "Oh, thank God you picked up," I exclaimed. "What do you want?" he replied coldly. "Look, I'm sorry if I did or said anything wrong. I get that we were both dealing with a lot. Learning that your daughter has cancer is a big deal, and everyone processes things differently." "What are you saying?" he asked. "What I'm trying to say is that I understand you must have been overwhelmed. I probably didn't make it easier by insinuating that you were selfish. Please don't leave Serena and me. Serena wants to see you and is scared you left because of her." First of all, I did leave because of her. Well, to be more precise, because of her upcoming expenses. The cancer news was just the final nail in the coffin. I didn't want to be more destitute than we already were. I was tired of constantly calculating how much I could spend. Wow, so you just wanted to leave because you were selfish, I said, incredulous. You can call me whatever you want, but I'm just doing what's best for myself. Do you really feel nothing for your daughter? How can you leave at the most crucial moment of her life without batting an eye? I get it. What Serena's going through is tragic, but I can't be there to support all of us anymore. I can't take any more financial strain, and that's it. What if Serena doesn't make it? Or what if the treatments continue for years? Who's going to finance all of that? You didn't even stop to think of things that way. How dare you believe that Serena won't make it? Even if she didn't, at least the guilt of not having tried enough wouldn't exist. Isn't that something you want? No thanks. I don't want to give up my comfort just to be there for no results. I hope you know that you're a monster. I hope nothing but the absolute worst for you. Great. The divorce papers shall reach you in a day or two. Please don't contact me again. Bye. I was appalled. I didn't know what to think. I felt completely numb. How could someone be so careless as to leave their daughter when she had just been diagnosed with cancer? I wanted to cry, not only because my relationship with Chase was over for such a selfish reason, but also because I didn't know how to tell Serena why her father left. I realized that I needed to steel myself and be strong for her. She was already going through so much. The last thing she needed was to see her mother break down. Over the course of the next year, Chase and I got legally divorced. I found out through social media that he married another woman immediately after our divorce was finalized. That sent me down an entirely new spiral, making me feel even more worthless than before. But again, I tamped down my emotions because I needed to stay strong for my little girl. I couldn't keep the reason for Chase's absence from Serena for long. I made excuses for the first few months, which was somewhat easier since she was almost always hospitalized. But eventually, I realized I was only hurting her by not telling her the truth. When I finally told her, she was heartbroken but eventually got through it. I stayed by her side throughout, letting her cry for as long as she needed. Watching her process her emotions helped me cope with mine. Serena underwent extensive surgery and chemotherapy. She lost all her hair and a significant amount of weight, but she remained happy, and that was all that mattered. The next 2 years were spent with frequent hospital visits for checkups and routine scans. Finally, 3 years after being diagnosed, my baby girl was declared cancer-free. It was a truly momentous occasion for us, so we hosted a big party to celebrate with everyone who had supported us, including my parents, Serena's teachers and classmates, our neighbors, and even Chase's parents. Chase's parents had been incredibly supportive, despite the circumstances. When they learned about our divorce, they were disgusted by their son's behavior and disowned him. They made it a point to come over and help in any way they could. I am truly grateful for them. After my baby girl turned 18, she decided to take a gap year to spend quality time with me, considering the last few years had been spent stressing over her cancer. We were finally doing well in every aspect of life, and I was genuinely beginning to feel good. But of course, something had to happen. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. For some reason, I picked it up. Hello. Hi, Diana. It's Chase here. How did you get my number? Well, I had to look around for it, but I found it eventually. Did you stalk me? No, look, I just wanted to check in on you and Serena. Why all of a sudden? I just miss both of you. Right. And it took you 5 years to reach out to us? I know I was horrible for what I did. I don't think horrible is a strong enough word to describe abandoning us right after my daughter got diagnosed with cancer, all because you were a selfish jerk. I see you're still holding onto that grudge. I'm sorry for it all, by the way. I'm a changed man now. I highly doubt that. Could you please just tell me how Serena's doing, at least? Why should I? You didn't care before, so I don't see why I should tell you anything. Look, you either tell me or I'll pull some strings and find out myself. Serena's doing fine, so am I. How were you able to finance everything for her? Why is that any of your concern? Look, I feel guilty enough for what I did. At least let me feel better knowing how you managed to get through it all. My parents helped, and so did yours. Our neighbors and Serena's school also helped in every way they could. Now that I think about it, maybe it was a good thing that you left. Yikes. But you're right, I've been nothing but miserable since I left. I married this woman who was filthy rich, quit my job, and became a stay-at-home husband. How was that miserable for you? Wasn't that everything you ever wanted? Sure, but she never failed to rub her wealth in my face. One day, I snapped at her, and she decided to leave me. Now I'm going to be homeless in a week and have nowhere to turn. So, you're the reason for your own misery. That's not surprising. Why are you telling me all this anyway? I just wanted to ask if you could send me some money just for the next few months until I can get back on my feet. I would ask my parents, but they refused to speak to me. Ha, you cannot be serious, Chase. You have some nerve to stalk me, find my number, threaten me with more stalking to find out about how we're doing, and then ask me for money after you abandoned your family when they were at their lowest. You don't have to keep throwing my mistakes in my face. I won't be able to help you in any way. Why? I promise I'll be better. I'll make up for it in any way that I can. Oh, I would love to help you, but it's too expensive to look after you. And I've gotten too used to my comforts. I can't imagine giving that up. You're right. Good luck with your future. Do me a favor and lose my number because I never want to hear from you again. If you contact me again, I will file a restraining order against you. Stay out of mine and Serena's lives for good, just as you intended when you left. Bye. Nothing felt better than throwing Chase's words back at him. Did I feel bad for his situation? Absolutely not. He left Serena and me when we were at our lowest, all because of his selfish needs. I saw no reason to help him and was shocked at his audacity to come crawling back. I blocked his number because I wanted nothing to do with him. I later found out through his parents that he had tried to contact them for help, but they wanted nothing to do with him either. They were appalled at his audacity and had a strong word with him, telling him he was a disappointment to them. He had burned all bridges just to live the comfortable life he wanted. I didn't keep up with what happened to Chase after that. His ex-wife reached out to me, asking if he had contacted me. I told her he did, and she shared that she couldn't understand how I had put up with him before because he was beyond a handful. We shared a few messages about how Chase was a jerk and then moved on. I didn't hide the fact that Chase had contacted me from Serena. She was relieved that I did not fall for whatever his plan was and stood my ground. I asked her if she wanted to get in contact with him, as he was still her father and she was entitled to feel however she wanted about him. Serena assured me she wanted nothing to do with Chase, especially after the heartbreak she suffered in the middle of her treatments when she found out he was never coming back. Things resumed back to normal in our lives after that. Somehow, knowing that Chase was living miserably added a spring to my step. It felt like a resolution to our tragic past. Serena felt the same way, and we began talking more openly about him. We've both decided it's time to go to therapy and deal with our issues. I'm excited to see where life takes us from here. I'm grateful for the second chance I've been given with my daughter. As long as I get to be with her until the end of my time, nothing else matters. Thank you so much for listening.
I've been working as a temp for 3 years and was supposed to leave the company without a contract renewal. On my first day of unemployment, I found myself being begged by the beautiful company CEO right in front of her house. My name is Ethan Bridge, and I'm 38 years old. I work as a temp at a trading company with about 20 employees. Originally, I was a full-time employee, but 5 years ago, I resigned to take care of my mother. Growing up in a single-parent household, I consider myself fortunate to have spent her final years together. After saying goodbye to my mother, I found myself alone at 35, trying to re-enter the workforce. Without notable skills and with a several-year gap, I ended up as a temp at my current company. The company was built from scratch by the former CEO, Nelson, who passed away suddenly a year before I joined. His eldest daughter, Natalie Nelson, took over, though she was still in her 20s at the time. Under her leadership, the company's performance steadily improved. With business expansion came the need for more staff, leading to the hiring of temps like me. Natalie is known in the industry for her beautiful appearance and sharp business acumen. However, internal evaluations of her are quite harsh. The office is on the same floor for all positions, so all employees work with a constant sense of tension. As a temp with no skills, I naturally couldn't be trusted with any responsible tasks. My days were spent handling menial tasks. On my first day of unemployment, I was handed a few mugs and headed to the washing area. I'm about to reach the end of my 3-year contract, and the only skills I've acquired are efficient cleaning and knowing the coffee preferences of all employees, including Natalie. The only praise I received was for cleaning a coffee stain off a mug that had been used by the employees for years. "Did you do this?" Natalie had once asked, having never spoken to me before. "Yes, I used a dish bleach for the cup stains," I answered nervously. She looked straight into my eyes. "Excuse me, but I'll get back to work," I said, feeling nervous but not ashamed, as she was truly admirable. 3 years of menial tasks flew by quickly, and the day my contract ended arrived. There was no renewal or department change, and the simple procedures continued under the assumption that I was to leave. My supervisors, though not bad people, didn't seem to care much about my departure. I kept telling myself it was better to move on without any lingering attachments. At the very last moment, I was called by Natalie. Though it was just a simple farewell, I was happy she even bothered to speak to me. "Natalie, I think you shouldn't overdo it," I added. To my surprise, she looked shocked. "Oh, did I seem that way?" she asked. Though she never showed any signs of weakness or fatigue, I could tell from her mug stains. "I mean the stains on your mug were the toughest to clean," I said. She looked at me, even more surprised. Afraid of being scolded, I quickly said, "Oh, sorry, please never mind that. Thank you very much. Excuse me," and was about to leave the room. "Wait a minute," she suddenly stopped me, grabbed my arm, and clearly said, "Can I ask you for a department transfer?" A few days after quitting the temp agency, I found myself riding the bus, dressed almost like I was lounging at home. I got off at a bus stop a bit away from the business district and looked around the square outside. "Ethan." I turned towards the voice that echoed clearly in the quiet square and saw Natalie waving at me in front of a car. That day was a company holiday. Natalie, not in her usual suit but in casual clothes, showed a sense of everyday life that I had never felt from her before. "I'm really sorry for making such an unexpected request. I'm really grateful you accepted," Natalie said as she drove through a quiet residential neighborhood and parked the car in front of a particular house. She naturally was about to get off and head inside when I called out to her again to make sure. "Sorry, but are you sure I'm the right person for this?" She calmed down and repeated what she had said before. "Definitely. You'll live here, won't you?" "With my sister, just until I return from the business trip." Surprisingly, my new job was at Natalie's house. She would be away in a state for a month and a half starting next week, leaving the house empty during that time. My job was to take care of the household and look after her sister, who was 4 years younger than her. "Could you please help?" "Of course, I'll pay you whatever it takes, and you can use the house as you like," Natalie asked. Without much hesitation, I agreed. Looking back, I'm not sure if it was the money or the house that drew me in, but I was just happy to be relied upon by Natalie. We walked through a garden overgrown with weeds, and Natalie finally opened the front door. The house was impressive, though not the mansion I had imagined. However, the inside of the house wasn't clean, and there were items that hadn't been moved since her parents had passed away. I had a sense of why I was called here, but probably the main reason was, "This is my sister Ruby. Hey Ruby, this is the person I told you about. Say hello," Natalie said. Surprised by Natalie's gentle voice for the first time, my gaze followed to a familiar bed, the care bed that I had bought when my mother could no longer move on her own. On it lay a young woman who looked too young for such a bed, glaring weakly at me. "Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm here to help with anything," I said. Overwhelmed by Ruby's wariness, I quickly added, "Of course, I'll be heading back home." "Oh, you can stay here if you like," said Natalie, although I frantically shook my head. Eventually, without hearing Ruby's voice, I left the room, and Natalie showed me around the house. My duties were mainly cleaning, sorting through belongings, gardening, and preparing Ruby's meals. She had been receiving meal deliveries but was apparently tired of the taste. Even as I listened to the explanation, I kept thinking about her. Given my mother's situation and my experience in caregiving, Ruby's situation felt entirely different. Ruby was involved in an accident when she was young. I was nearby at the time, but only she was affected. She probably hates me. That's why I always thought someone else should take care of her, Natalie confided. The more I heard, the more anxious I became, but moved by Natalie's voice, I felt a firm sense of responsibility. Well, she can do most basic things on her own with a wheelchair, but she can be quite demanding. Just call me if anything comes up, and please never enter my room on the second floor, Natalie instructed, handing me the spare keys as she saw me out. I'm coming to this house starting tomorrow, I thought. I still couldn't quite grasp the reality, but having accepted the job, I knew I couldn't go into it half-heartedly. The next day, I quickly finished cleaning the garden and approached Ruby, who was sitting on her bed reading a book. Is there anything I should do? I asked. No, she replied coldly without looking up. It was the first time I heard her voice. She seemed able to manage basic living on her own and could even make her own coffee while reading. Since there was still a week left on her meal delivery service contract, there was no need for me to cook. She had completely shut herself off, and forcibly opening up wouldn't make any sense. Resigned to that, I spent my time cleaning the house. Although not asked, I had been sending brief update emails to Natalie, who was in another state. Her replies were just okay, the same as when she was busy at work. That continued as I hardly saw Ruby's face, just cleaning the house day after day. One day, while I was tidying the kitchen and watching Ruby's back as she read in bed, she unexpectedly muttered, "Oh, she probably ran out of coffee." Maybe out of habit, I quickly approached and asked, "Shall I make some coffee for you?" Without taking her eyes off her book, she muttered, "Just make it." At that moment, I was struck by her dismissive tone and her profile. It was natural since they were sisters, but she resembled Natalie so much, just like how Natalie would hand over a mug without looking away from her computer and say, "Just make it." I prepared the instant coffee available in the kitchen and placed it beside Ruby, saying, "Here you go." Without looking away from her book, she took a sip and glanced at me for the first time. Looking into her eyes and seeing her skin up close, she seemed much younger than Natalie and even more radiant under the daylight. It was just a few seconds of eye contact, and without saying anything, she returned to her reading. From that day on, she began to ask me to make her coffee. Furthermore, the interactions weren't limited to just brief ones to refill her coffee. With the end of the meal delivery service contract, I started cooking for her. At first, everything was a guessing game, and it was difficult to discern her preferences since she never showed her emotions. However, after about 2 weeks, I started finding notes like roast chicken, or meatloaf, or pasta or stew, with no broccoli secretly left on the table. They were probably written by Ruby during cleaning. I realized she did have her whims, as Natalie had mentioned, but I also started to feel a sense of affection. When I messaged that to Natalie, she replied with an unusual exclamation. "Okay." I fist pumped alone, feeling victorious. Just as I began to think Ruby was opening up to me, she asked me for something quite difficult. "Take me to Natalie's room," she said, looking directly into my eyes from her bed. I couldn't break my promise to Natalie to never enter that room, and Ruby's earlier words, "I think she hates me," weighed on my mind. Given how different their personalities and situations were, it was impossible to predict what they thought of each other. Natalie's room was upstairs, and Ruby couldn't get there on her own. Even if it was her sister's request, I couldn't break my promise to Natalie. "I can't take you to the room." I dodged the issue, but from then on, Ruby would pout daily saying, "I want to go to the room." When I refused, she would glare at me and mutter, "Coward." But I stood firm. One evening, when I returned from shopping and opened the front door, the first thing I saw was Ruby crouching at the bottom of the stairs. "Are you okay?" I dropped the groceries and rushed over. She seemed unhurt, but her cheeks were flushed. Clearly, she had tried to go to Natalie's room on her own. "Why do you want to go upstairs so badly?" I asked. "There's something I need to check," she said, looking away. Carrying her up the stairs step by step, she was lighter than I had imagined. "This is our little secret from Natalie, okay?" I said to her. I felt something earnest in her voice earlier, not just whimsy. "You want to see the room more than I do, don't you?" She whispered so close to my ear. We reached the door, and I apologized to Natalie in my heart as I opened it. But it was just an ordinary room, though fitting for a company CEO. Textbooks and economics books from her student days were piled high, evidence of her intelligence and hard work away from the public eye. Caught up in my thoughts, I suddenly looked at Ruby, who was staring at one spot on the desk. Following her gaze, I saw 3 framed photos. The faded photos were likely of the family, young siblings running around hand in hand, washed by their parents, and scenes from Natalie's birthdays. All of them featured the sisters smiling. Looking at the photos, I instantly understood how Natalie felt about her sister, and Ruby felt the same. Her smile as she looked at the photos warmed my heart too. "Would you like to take one down with you?" I asked. She replied, "No, I'd get scolded. Natalie has always been strict, you know. Wasn't she tough at the company as well?" "Yeah, pretty much," I replied with an innocent laugh. I didn't mention that incident in my nightly email to Natalie, but I wrote, "Ruby is a wonderful person, much like you," to which she simply responded, "I know." In the last week, Ruby started to share various things with me. She even suggested, "Let's go shopping together," and showed an interest in the outside world. Of course, Ruby's wins were still there as she kept adjusting my speed while I pushed her wheelchair. Too slow. Now too fast. After a month and a half, Natalie returned. We were a bit late heading to the airport, where Natalie was scanning the crowd with her heavy luggage. Natalie. As she turned at my call, she quickly looked down and exclaimed, "Ruby," dropping her bags and rushing over. "I'm sorry we're late. Ruby insisted on coming to meet you," I explained. "Hey, Ethan, it's not my fault, okay?" Ruby complained from her wheelchair, perhaps embarrassed to meet Natalie's gaze. Natalie, likely seeing Ruby smile for the first time in years, looked like she was about to cry. "Shall we head home?" I suggested, boldly escorting the 2 of them home. Seeing the sisters' smiles was all I could have wished for. I thought that was truly the end. The house was spotless, and Natalie was thrilled with my cooking. Who would have thought we'd be having a meal together like this? She almost cried again before taking a deep breath and then said, "Ethan, I want to thank you." As I started to protest, she cut me off. "I want you to marry Ruby. You're the only one for her. You're the only one she's opened up to this much." She blurted it all out in one go. Naturally, I was at a loss for words. Marriage? That thought was fleeting. An ephemeral hope bubbled up within me only to vanish in an instant. "What are you talking about, Natalie?" "Absolutely not." Ruby's response came without any hesitation. While Natalie was surprised, I expected her to react that way. However, her words weren't done yet. "It's you who should be getting married, Ethan. You like Natalie, right?" Those words left both Natalie and me wide-eyed, unable to stop our faces from flushing. Seeing that, Ruby laughed heartily. "Ethan, you're too obvious. You always look so happy when I talk about Natalie, and I like your coffee, but I prefer a more handsome guy." There was no escaping at that point. Cliché as it sounds, from the moment I first met Natalie, I noticed I liked her. Additionally, those past 6 weeks I've spent with Ruby have indeed drawn me closer to Natalie. I cherished the affection I felt for Ruby and wanted to share that feeling with Natalie. Above all, those days have shown me how tenderly Natalie thinks of Ruby. "Natalie, the mug you've always used at the office. That was a gift from Ruby, wasn't it?" The photos in that room I secretly entered from her childhood birthday parties showed Ruby giving that mug to Natalie. "You saw them?" Natalie glanced at us sternly for a moment, then relaxed and said with a smile, "You're right. That's why I was so happy when you cleaned the mug. It's hard to put into words, but I knew then that you could be a support for us." It looks like I wasn't wrong. Her smile moved me deeply, something I had longed to see. Ruby shared her thoughts. "I always thought I was holding my brilliant sister back. That's why I was always so cold. I'm sorry, but I want you to be happier from now on. That's why I recommend this guy." She playfully nudged me, her voice trembling. "Natalie, would you like to keep living together, the 3 of us?" At my words, Natalie said, trying to act tough, "Well, let's renew the contract then." Despite their different paths, the sisters, who always cared for each other, were indeed alike in some ways. Years later, I am still living in that house, now practically a stay-at-home husband with my wife, Natalie, and Ruby. Both the company's performance and my cooking skills are on the rise. Even though it's a holiday today, the sisters are just lounging around at home. "More coffee, please." Ruby is still demanding but has become noticeably cheerier. She's even starting to get attention from clients at her new job, playfully boasting about potentially marrying into wealth. Honey, I want some too. Just make it however you like, called Natalie's gentle voice. I went to get matching mugs for the three of us. Hello, my name is Diana, and I'm 25 years old. The incidents I'm going to tell you about happened a couple of years ago. They involve my ex-fiancé Zach and his sister Eva. Eva and I were friends before I started dating Zach. We worked together at the same coffee shop and quickly became close. When we met, I was a senior in high school and she was in her final year of college. Despite the age gap, we bonded over our shared time off and often hung out outside of work hours. Before you think it's odd that I started dating Eva's brother, I had no idea she even had one. We rarely talked about our families and only ever mentioned our parents. I met Zach in my second year of university. By then, Eva had moved to another state for work, and I missed her terribly. We still kept in touch, calling each other every other day. Eva had been both a friend and a mentor to me, helping me through college and teaching me how to socialize, as I was quite shy and antisocial. Eva suggested that frat parties were the best way to meet people. Even though I wasn't big on parties, I decided to give it a try because I hadn't made many friends in my first 2 years of college. At the party, I felt overwhelmed by the crowd and loud music, so I sat down on a couch to catch my breath. That's when Zach sat next to me. Hey, are you okay? He asked, noticing my discomfort. Yeah, I'm fine, I replied. Did you drink too much or did you drink something uncovered? Oh no, I didn't drink anything. I'm very sober. That's a shame. Is this your first time at a party? Yeah, how could you tell? Well, you look like you'd rather be anywhere else but here. Okay, that's fair. I'd much rather be back in my room reading a book than being shoved around by sweaty, drunk strangers. Why are you here then? My friend convinced me this was the best way to make friends in college. Like an idiot, I listened to her. There are definitely better ways to make friends. Where's your friend? Shouldn't she be keeping you company? She's a few years older and in a different state right now. That's rough. Hey, do you want to maybe grab some burgers and milkshakes? I don't have a car, so that's not possible. Don't worry, I have a car. I can drive us. I don't think it's smart for you to drive if you're drunk. I'm not drunk. I'm abstaining from alcohol at the moment. I partied too hard last week, and the aftermath was not pretty. I don't believe you. All right then, there's a great little burger joint a bit away from campus. You up for a walk? Just as I was about to turn Zach down, a drunk girl fell on top of me, laughing loudly. I helped her up and then turned back to Zach, agreeing to the walk. The burger joint was a 40-minute walk from campus, but it didn't feel that long. Zach and I got to know each other better during the walk. He was in his second year as well, studying finance while I was studying marketing. We discovered we were from the same part of the city. When we arrived at the burger joint, we were ravenous and ate as if we hadn't seen food in days. We grew more comfortable with each other as time passed. On the walk back to campus, we laughed so much and leaned on each other for support, appearing as if we were drunk. Zach walking back to my dorm room and hugged me goodbye. We exchanged numbers and promised to meet again. I was on cloud 9. Not only had I made a new friend, but I had also found a guy I genuinely liked. I had dated a few guys in high school, but I had never been this excited about anyone. For the first time in my life, I was looking forward to college. It had always been something I dreaded, thinking I'd never fit in. But meeting Zach felt like the start of something new. I couldn't wait to tell Eva about my night with him. I texted her and asked if we could hop on a video call. About half an hour later, we were face to face, and one look at my expression told Eva that something big had happened. What happened? Don't hide anything. I know something good happened, she demanded. Well, I took your advice. Oh my God, did you go to the party against my better judgment? I hated it, Eva. Oh well, at least you tried. I'm sorry I suggested it. Maybe you could meet someone in the library instead. Stop it, let me finish. I was very uncomfortable at the party. I sat on the couch like the loner I was until a guy sat next to me and started talking. Oh, did he do something bad? If he touched you inappropriately, I'll fly back and beat the hell out of him. No, Eva. He was actually worried because he thought my drink got spiked. Oh wow, that was not what I was expecting out of a guy at a frat party. It's good to hear that though. Yeah, and you know what's even more shocking? He wasn't drunk. He was just a genuinely nice guy. What? That's insane. What's his name? His name is Zach. Huh, my brother has the same name. Maybe this is a sign that I'll always be near you and you can never get rid of me. Oh, shut up, Eva. Anyways, did you guys become friends? I think so. We went on a long walk to this burger joint, got burgers and milkshakes, and laughed a lot. We exchanged numbers. If that doesn't mean there's potential to be friends, I don't know what does. Look at you go. I'm so glad you had a good time. I probably should have told you not to go to a party by yourself, but at least it ended well. Even though I listened to you, I feel like I should tell you that I absolutely hated the party. I enjoyed walking for nearly 2 hours more than sitting in a room full of drunk people. Whatever. The only thing I'm taking away from this story is that I was right and you should listen to me more. I was genuinely happy, and Eva was happy for me too. It felt like things were changing, and boy did they change after that. Zach texted me the next day and asked if I wanted to meet up again after classes. Of course, I was down. For the first time since starting college, I was going out for fun, not just for assignments. Zach and I had another great time, and on our way back to campus, he asked if I'd like to meet his friends. I was nervous but figured if I managed to meet someone as amazing as Zach by luck, meeting more people wouldn't hurt. I met his friend group over the weekend, and they were surprisingly easy to get along with. They made me feel welcome without trying too hard. By the time we were heading back to our dorms, I felt like we had all grown closer in just a few hours. These people became a regular part of my life. They were from different departments, but some of us shared classes, and we all met at a particular table on the lawn during lunch hour. Suddenly, college didn't seem like a tedious task I had to complete alone. As for Zach and me, we went on many more dates. Soon we realized we had feelings for each other, but neither of us made a move. Finally, one day, Zach invited me on a fancy dinner date and asked me to be his girlfriend. I was ecstatic and said yes. We shared our first kiss on the way back home, and I felt like I was floating when I returned to my dorm room. I knew Eva would love to hear about this development. She had been rooting for Zach and me to be a couple, constantly urging me to make a move. Though I was too scared to do it myself, she would be thrilled to hear that Zach and I were together. I called her up to share the good news. "What's up?" she asked. "I have some amazing news for you." "Oh, you know I love good news. Tell me everything." Well, Zach asked me out on a proper date yesterday, I shared with Eva. "A proper date? Haven't all your solo hangouts actually been dates?" she asked. "No, I mean we went to this fancy restaurant for dinner. I got dressed up for it." "No way. It's crazy that I didn't get to see you all dolled up." "Wow, you really are growing up. Stop acting like you're my mom. What do you even mean by that?" "I practically raised you at this point," she said with a laugh. "All right, drama queen." Anyways, as I was saying, Zach and I had a good time, and after dinner, he asked me to be his girlfriend. "What? That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm levitating. I still can't believe this is real." "Well, it is real, and you better enjoy it as much as you can." "Oh, I definitely will." For the next 3 years, Zach and I grew more comfortable with each other. Our relationship felt like something straight out of a movie. There wasn't a single day that I was sad when I was with him. The only small issue we had was that Zach still wanted to live with his parents while I wanted us to live together. His main argument was that he was saving money so we could splurge when we got married, so I let it go. I hadn't officially introduced Eva and Zach to each other yet. Zach wasn't a big fan of phone calls, so they had only talked a few times. Then Eva told me she was coming back. I was ecstatic to have my best friend back after 4 years. She had found a better job in our town and thought it would be great to be closer to family and me. When Eva returned, she came over to my place for a sleepover. We geeked out about her being back and caught up on everything that had happened in our lives since she left. We made plans for Eva and Zach to meet that weekend. I was sure they'd like each other. When the weekend came, I walked into the cafe first and greeted Eva. "Hey, Eva." "Hello, how are you?" "All good. What about you?" "I'm good, but I could be better." "Where's your man?" "Zach's parking the car. He'll be here in a second." "Oh, there he is." As Zach walked in, Eva's face changed. "Hold on, that's Zach." "Yes." "Why, Eva? What are you doing here?" Zach said, equally surprised. "I could ask you the same thing. Hello, could one of you explain what's going on here? I asked, confused. Diana, out of all the people in this world, I can't believe you're dating him, Eva exclaimed. Yeah, well, I can't believe you managed to befriend Ava out of everyone on Earth, Zach responded. One of you will either explain or I'm leaving, I said, frustrated. Remember how I told you your boyfriend had the same name as my brother? Well, you are dating my brother. What? But you don't even have the same last names. He's my half-brother, but still. You managed to do something crazy, Eva said, shaking her head. Eva explained that her mom had died when she was young. Her dad remarried Zach's mother, and then they had Zach. I couldn't believe how everything had lined up so perfectly. Never in a million years would I have thought that I was actually dating Eva's brother. At least he was someone she could vouch for. About a year after Eva returned, Zach proposed to me. I obviously said yes, and we began planning our wedding. I told Eva about our engagement, but she seemed upset. When I asked her if something was wrong, she quickly changed the topic. Concerned, I talked to Zach about it, and he agreed that her behavior was odd. He tried talking to her, but she became hostile and told him to leave her alone. This went on for months, and eventually Eva and I were barely speaking. It felt like I had lost a really good friend, and I hated it. I had been busy with the wedding and work, and I hadn't had time to sit down and talk to her properly. One day, I decided I couldn't stand it any longer and invited her over to my place. Eva, can you please talk to me? What's going on? Why are you suddenly ignoring me? I really don't want to do this to you. What? What are you talking about? Just tell me if I did something wrong. Did I upset you in any way? No, you did nothing wrong. I'm just dealing with something big, and I don't know how to talk about it. Am I not your friend? You can talk to me about anything. I really wish I could tell you this, but it's very different. It'll break you, Diana. I don't care. I just want my best friend back. Zach is also very worried about you. Oh yeah, I'm sure he's got other things to worry about. What are you talking about? Never mind. Please don't leave me hanging like this, Eva. It's killing me. I feel like I'm losing you. I promise you're not going to lose me. I just need to find a way to explain things to you and get even with who I'm angry at. Could I at least get a hint about who you're angry at? No, that will only make things worse for you. Just trust me to handle things the right way. I'm terrified, but I trust you, Eva. Eva barely spoke to me after that. She didn't participate in any wedding planning and even refused to be my maid of honor. I was heartbroken. I trusted that Eva wouldn't leave me hanging. The months passed, and soon it was the day of Zach and my wedding. Just as it was almost time for me to walk down the aisle, Eva texted me, asking me to meet her in the alley behind the hall. Confused and concerned, I asked why she couldn't come to my room. She insisted it was important that no one saw her. Whatever she wanted to tell me sounded urgent. I informed one of my bridesmaids that I'd be a few minutes late and went to find Eva. I found Eva pacing back and forth in the alley. She quickly walked up to me, grabbed my hand, and placed a USB in it. Before I could ask her what it was for, she told me I needed to play the video on the USB and expose her brother. I was baffled and scared, but I trusted Eva. I instructed one of the staff to give the USB to the person in charge of the presentations on the projector, with instructions to play it as soon as I walked down the aisle. 2 minutes later, my heart racing, I walked down the aisle. Zach looked at me with awe, tears running down his face. Despite my fears, I hoped he had done nothing wrong. As I reached the altar, the video started playing. The crowd gasped. When I turned around, my stomach dropped. The video showed Zach and my bridesmaid, Celeste, making out and touching each other all over in his portion of the venue just hours before the wedding. I dropped my bouquet and ran out of the hall. Zach followed me. Diana, wait. What the hell? Zach, I promise it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. Your hands were all over her, and your faces were practically melded together. It was a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness right before our wedding. Really, Zach? At least come up with better excuses. Okay, fine. Celeste and I started messing around 2 years ago. Great. So while you were professing your love for me, you were sleeping with your best friend. We drank a little too much, and one thing led to another. You're disgusting. Why would you keep me in the dark for so long? What did you expect me to say? You'd have left me instantly and told Eva, who would then tell my family. You know, my family is very tolerant of everything except cheating. You know what? You just ruined my life. Why are you getting mad at me when you're facing the consequences of your own actions? You could have come to me privately instead of humiliating me like this. Cry me a river. You deserve this. I'm glad I found out before marrying you. If I hadn't found out, you would have kept it up, wouldn't you? Yeah, that's what I thought. You're not even sorry for cheating on me. You're only sorry you got caught. You know what? Screw you. I hope you and Celeste are happy now that I'm out of the picture. I walked away and texted Eva to meet me at my place. She arrived a few minutes later, trying to hug me, but I only wanted her to explain things. She told me that after coming back, she stayed with her parents for a while. One night, she heard 2 pairs of feet shuffling into Zach's room and thought it was me. She got up to talk and tease us for sneaking around, but she walked in on Zach and Celeste. In shock, she didn't grab evidence and just went back to her room. She couldn't look at me without feeling guilty. She tried for months to find evidence, knowing I wouldn't believe her without it. When she finally did, she wanted me to take revenge in the best way possible. I hugged her tightly, grateful she had my back. She apologized repeatedly for keeping it from me, but I understood her reasoning. She stayed with me, consoling me through the shock of my relationship ending. A few months have passed since then. Healing has been a long process. Zach's tried to contact me, but I blocked him everywhere. Eva told me no one in their family was speaking to him, and their parents had kicked him out. Celeste had also dumped him for someone else. It's satisfying to see Zach's life fall apart while mine is getting better, thanks to the one person who always had my back. Cheers to that. Hello, my name's Mabel, and I'm 30 years old. Recently, I came into a large fortune, and it revealed the ugly side of my husband. Today, I want to share my story and how I unintentionally exacted revenge on 2 people at once. To start, let me introduce myself a bit more. Though I grew up away from my grandparents, we were very close. They visited us every few months just to spend time with me. I was especially close to my grandmother, the apple of her eye, and she never ceased to spoil me. When my grandfather passed away when I was 17, I was devastated. My grandmother didn't take it well either. To be closer to her, I chose a college in her state. It was there that I met my ex-husband, Toby. Toby and I started dating in our junior year and had a pretty good relationship. He was everything I was looking for in a partner, so we continued our relationship after graduation. We got engaged a few months later but decided to wait until we were financially stable to get married. In the meantime, since I had a better apartment, Toby moved in with me. While my relationship with Toby was great, his sister Julia and I couldn't get along. She lived in another state with her husband but doted on Toby obsessively. She hated me from the moment we met, probably thinking I was stealing her baby brother. She was always rude and unaccommodating. The only reason I tolerated her visits was her daughter Viola. Viola and I got along very well, and Julia appreciated the break when I looked after her daughter. Despite Julia's behavior, Toby never stood up for me, too afraid to hurt his sister. Not wanting to cause a rift, I kept quiet and dealt with it. 3 years after our engagement, Toby and I were financially stable enough to get married. It was an amazing day, and everything seemed perfect until 4 years into our marriage. 2 major events occurred. First, my grandmother passed away, leaving me heartbroken. I inherited about $1 million in money and assets, but her loss overshadowed any material gain. Second, Julia and her family moved back to town. Suddenly, Toby was rarely home, always at Julia's place, and when he was home, Julia was often around. The only solace I found was spending time with Viola. Grieving my grandmother's death, I felt abandoned by Toby. One day, Toby came home alone after work, a rare occurrence. "Hey, sweetie, how was your day?" I asked. "It was pretty good. What about you?" "Oh, same old. I went to meet Julia, and we got to talking." "You seem to be visiting Julia a lot." "You know, we're really close. I miss her and I guess I just feel better when I'm around her. Anyways, do you want to know what we talked about?" "Yeah, sure. Tell me." "Well, I told her we were planning on buying a house." "I'm going to cut you off right there. I never agreed to that." "Just listen to me." "Julia asked how I had the funds for it, and I told her about your inheritance. She suggested it would be a great investment." "And why is that?" "You have more than enough money to almost fully purchase a house. I think we should invest in it to be well settled for the rest of our lives. But I want to invest my money elsewhere. What's better than securing a house for ourselves?" I can think of several better uses for our future. I don't want to spend all my money on one thing. It's like you're saying your money is yours and not mine. Well, it kind of is. I get to decide what I want to do with it, and you have no say in it. Look, you either invest your money in something for both of us, or I'm leaving. Where would you go? You're begging me to buy a house with my money for your future. If you leave, that's your loss. So you're okay with me leaving because you want to keep your money. Don't twist my words, Toby. You're the one threatening to leave if I don't spend on you. I thought you loved me and wanted to spend your future with me. Forgive me for looking out for us. You're really bad at whatever you're trying to do here. I'm keeping my money and deciding how to spend it. Fine, but could you at least think about spending it on a house for us? Sure. I wasn't sure why Toby was so adamant about buying the house, but something didn't seem right. I knew I had to stand my ground. Toby began to distance himself from me. After that conversation, Toby began spending even more time at Julia's place. Julia stopped coming over except to drop Viola off for babysitting. I tried talking to Toby multiple times, asking him what was wrong, but he always brushed me off, insisting everything was fine. Eventually, I gave up, figuring I'd wait until he was ready to talk. However, things took an unexpected turn when Julia dropped Viola off one day. Hey Viola, how's my favorite niece doing? I greeted her. I'm your only niece, she replied with a giggle. Still my favorite though. I hope I'll always be your favorite. Of course you will be. So what do you want to do today? I was thinking we could get our nails done and then have some ice cream. Yay, can I paint my nails pink? Of course you can. And can I get strawberry ice cream? Why not? We'll get you everything you want. I only have one niece, and if I don't spoil her, would I really be her aunt? You know you're my favorite aunt. I really will miss you. Miss me, sweetie. What do you mean? I'm not going anywhere. Are you sure? Yes, of course. Where do you think I'll be going? Well, it's just that. What is it? You can tell me anything. I promise I won't tell anyone else. Okay, well, I heard Mommy and Uncle talking the other day. Uncle as in Uncle Toby? Yeah. Mommy said she's going to help Uncle with getting some cases. Cases? What are you talking about? They kept talking about some cases that would give them some money. Then she told Uncle Toby that he would have a nice big house after you left. You. What? Oh my God, sweetie, when did you hear about this? About 2 days ago. Are you sure you heard correctly? Yes, I'm sure. As soon as Mommy saw that I was listening, she yelled at me to go to my room. She also told me not to tell you anything, but I only told you because you're my favorite aunt. Thank you so much, sweetie. Now enough of this. Let's go out and have a fun day. I tried my best to go about the rest of the day as if I hadn't heard what Viola told me. I could tell she felt bad for telling me, but I reassured her she did nothing wrong. I spoiled her just like always. When it was time for her to go home, I made her promise not to tell her mom or Toby what she had told me. Viola promised and hugged me goodbye before Julia picked her up. As soon as they left, panic rose in my chest. I knew something was wrong with Toby, but to trick me into spending my money on him was a new low. It was something I would never have expected from him. Unsure of what to do, I called Toby's father, Edgar, who was a lawyer. Although he could have been in on Toby and Julia's plan, I had a gut feeling that he was a good man. He always treated me like a princess and put Julia in her place whenever she tried to bully me. Edgar picked up the call in his usual cheerful manner. Hello, darling. To what do I owe this phone call? Hi, Edgar. How are you? Oh, I'm doing quite well. What about you? I actually don't know. I called because I need your help. My help. What could I help you with? Isn't Toby around? He is. But he's kind of the problem. Oh no. I always told that boy to treat you right. It's hard to come by women as amazing as you. Thank you, Edgar. You may be the only one in your family who thinks I'm amazing. What are you talking about? Well, I was babysitting Viola the other day, and she told me that Toby and Julia are planning something against me. Against you? What do you mean? Viola didn't know the specifics, but apparently, they plan on taking money from me. What in God's name are you telling me? I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm worried, and I figured I'd come to you for help since you're a lawyer. You did the right thing coming to me. Now tell me, do you believe Viola? I do, because in the past few months, Toby has been distancing himself from me. I tried talking to him about it, but he never took me seriously. All right, And why do you think Julia is involved? Ever since she moved back, Toby has been spending a lot of time with her. It made sense at first since they were apart for years, but now he's at her house for hours every single day. That's strange. Did something happen a few months ago that might have triggered Toby's behavior? Yes, I received my grandmother's inheritance when she passed away. It was a substantial amount. Toby wanted to use it to buy a house, but I was hesitant. Since then, he's been acting weird. My guess is that they're planning to get your money. First of all, I'm so sorry my children are doing this to you. This is not how I raised them. Secondly, why don't you drop by my office tomorrow and we'll figure this out properly? That sounds great. And you have nothing to apologize for. You're clearly a good man. Thank you for helping me. I don't know what I would do without you. I was genuinely grateful that Edgar was willing to help. I hadn't expected him to side with me over his own children, but I was relieved he did. The next day, I took a day off work and went to Edgar's office. Once there, Edgar apologized again for Toby and Julia's behavior. I told him to focus on helping me navigate this situation. We suspected Toby was planning to ask for a divorce, so our first step was to contact all the reputable divorce lawyers in the city for advice. This would limit Toby's access to good lawyers due to conflict of interest, as they would already know my side of the story. Next, we needed to figure out how Toby and Julia planned to take my inheritance. Thankfully, I had kept my inheritance money in a separate bank account and hadn't used it to buy anything for Toby or myself. Although I had planned to buy Toby some luxury items he wanted, that clearly wasn't going to happen now. Since there was no legal way for them to access my money, Edgar and I concluded they might try to steal it outright. We decided to set up a trap to catch them in the act. I had a top-of-the-line security system installed in my apartment due to my paranoia about break-ins. Toby knew and agreed to this when he moved in. I then pretended to have trouble with my bank account, subtly letting Toby know that my bank details were logged on my laptop. Lastly, I told Toby I was going to meet a friend over the weekend, leaving him home alone. I then met Edgar, who would serve as a witness and corroborate my alibi. In the middle of our conversation, I received a notification that money had been transferred from my account to our joint account. I immediately called the police and reported the theft. When I got back from meeting Edgar, Toby was sitting in the dining room and asked me to sit with him. We need to talk. Oh? About what? About us. Okay, we're not working out. I agree. You agree? What do you mean? Well, for starters, I didn't like how you threatened to end the relationship over money, something I would have spent on us had you not done that. I didn't think that you would. And that's another point. You think so little of me, and I don't think that's a sign of a good partner. As if you've been a good partner, you've been selfish since the start, and I only put up with it because I loved you. How in the world was I selfish? I helped you pay off your student loans before mine. I supported you for a whole year when you didn't have a job. I sacrificed so much to make sure you were happy. The few times I didn't do what you wanted, I became a selfish monster to you. Don't act like what you did was some righteous thing. I would have done the same for you. Would you? You never helped me out when I was sick. Why would I think you'd sacrifice your comfort for me when I really needed it? You're just trying to make me feel bad. No, and the last reason I don't want to be with you is that I don't want to be with a lying, manipulative thief. What are you saying? Don't think I don't know about what you and Julia have been planning. I saw you transfer money out of my account into our joint account. I know you wanted to split that during the divorce. No, don't even bother. I know everything. You are a pathetic man, and I see no reason to be with you. Oh well, I'll still get half of what I transferred into our account. I still win. Will you? If I recall correctly, I had security cameras installed in my apartment, and you made that transaction from my laptop when I wasn't home. I've already reported you for theft. The police should be here anytime soon. You did what? Oh, here they come. Good luck. I'll see you in court. The relief I felt seeing Toby finally face the consequences of his actions was unparalleled. The following weeks were a nightmare of courtroom sessions and evidence viewing. Along with the theft charges, I filed for divorce. Edgar, my lawyer, fought long and hard to ensure Toby paid for his crime. Edgar won the case, and Toby was sentenced to 2 years in jail and fined an additional $30,000. Nothing was sweeter than the taste of revenge. Just as Edgar and I were celebrating our victory, Julia approached us. She had been absent during all the previous trials and chose to show up only on the day of the verdict. Her anger was evident as she pointed her finger at Edgar. Dad, you were helping this witch. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't have helped Mabel. I don't know, because she literally put your son in jail. And he deserved his sentence. It will make him think twice before trying to steal from someone again. How could you do that to your own son? No, Julia, how could you do that to your own brother? Don't think I didn't see the real reason behind your plan. You were going to help Toby get the money so you could also reap the benefits. I was trying to give him a break from this jerk here. You have no idea how toxic she is for him. I don't think she was the toxic one, Julia. You were a bad influence on him, and he was stupid enough to fall for your little game. He's getting the punishment he deserves, and maybe now he'll think twice before ever listening to you. You know you're going to lose him this way. He will never talk to you again. Good, because I have no children as far as I'm concerned. Don't be so dramatic. I'll be here. But I'm not happy with the way you treated my baby brother. As far as I'm concerned, neither you nor your brother are my children, because I know for a fact that this is not how I raise my kids. What are you talking about? What I'm saying is that I'm disowning both of you. I want nothing to do with either of you. You can't do that. I actually can, and I'm going to do just that. This is all Mabel's fault. If she had thought of someone other than herself for a second, this wouldn't be happening. No, you shouldn't have been so greedy. I was going to spoil Toby with all the things he wanted, but you had to interfere. You took away everything from him, and I hope you sit and think long and hard about what you did to your brother. Goodbye. I grabbed Edgar's hand, and we left. We couldn't help but chuckle at what had happened. I was happy Toby got what he deserved and that I was free of his manipulative ways. I did feel bad that Edgar had lost both his children because of me, but he assured me it was their own decisions that led to this outcome. I took him out for coffee, and we've maintained a good friendship ever since. Julia harassed me over text, but Edgar told her and her husband to leave me alone. This is where I unintentionally got revenge on Julia as well. Julia's husband had no idea about her involvement in what happened between Toby and me, so he called Edgar and was shocked to learn the truth. Their marriage had been on the rocks due to Julia's constant nagging about money while she refused to work. He did not appreciate her extreme actions and asked for a divorce. He also requested and received almost full custody of Viola, with Julia only getting her every other weekend. Thanks to a solid prenup, Julia got little alimony and was kicked out of their house. She blamed it all on me, but I was a little happy to see her get what she deserved. Despite everything, I still got to see Viola often, as she loved me and Julia's ex-husband couldn't say no to her. He was very apologetic, but I reminded him he had nothing to apologize for. And yes, I am spoiling Viola senseless. As for me, my life has only gotten better. I got a promotion at work and hired an accountant to manage my finances. I've invested my money in several places, and it's only a matter of time before I see returns. Getting to where I am today took a lot of struggle, but the view from here is one I'm loving. I have a better understanding of people now, and I'll be much more cautious in the future. Thank you for your time. Hello, I am Nancy, and I am 29 years old. My life has been a rocky road most of the time, but I would go through all those years of hardship again to become who I am today. To move forward with this story, I need to start from the very beginning. I was born and raised in the small town of Fairfield, Iowa. Growing up, it was just me and my mom. My dad struggled with alcoholism. From what my mom told me, he lacked stability as an adult. I don't remember much about him because he left when I was only 3. Since then, he has never been part of the picture. After my dad left, my mom's life took a turn for the worse, and she struggled to cope. Occasionally, we received financial help from my grandparents, which was a great relief. To support our family, my mom took on several shifts at a diner owned by Richard and Eleanor Evans. I attended school with their son, Ethan, who would later become my ex-husband. Initially, Ethan and I did not get along, but as we grew older, we developed a special connection and became close friends. We started dating when I was 16. Eleanor never seemed to approve of our relationship and began to distance herself from my mother. The Evans family was not very wealthy either. Although the diner was decent, it didn't perform exceptionally well. Ethan often confided in me about his parents' late-night arguments concerning the struggles of their business. Everything went downhill in the summer of 2016. During that time, I was working in a bookstore, determined to save up for college. I knew that coming from a small town did not limit my dreams, In fact, I had always wanted to make it big in life. Unfortunately, my mom had an accident. After fighting for her life in the hospital for a month, she finally passed away. I was devastated. She was the only blood family I had ever known apart from my grandparents. I felt very lost in life. Ethan became my pillar of support and pulled me out of the darkness I was in. I decided to leave my job at the bookstore and take up my mom's spot at the diner, as they offered better pay. Sadly, I had to give up on my college dreams and fend for myself since I was now on my own. Around 8 months after my mom's passing, while we were closing up the diner together, Ethan surprised me with a proposal. With all my heart, I said yes. The wedding was a small and intimate event with only a few close people. After the wedding, I moved in with him and his parents. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Eleanor had always been focused on wealth and status. I remember my mom telling me how Eleanor would discuss the diner business flourishing and then finding a girl for Ethan with an impressive background, someone from a wealthy family, a prestigious college graduate, and so on. It was surprising to learn that Ethan's parents, especially Eleanor, were supportive of our marriage. But at that time, I was preoccupied with my own grief and did not think much about it. Despite being aware of our relationship, Eleanor indirectly expressed her belief that her son deserved to be with someone of higher standing. One day, when the diner was busy, Ethan's friend Miles paid a visit. I was in the back doing inventory when I overheard snippets of Eleanor talking with Miles and his new wife, Sheila. I made my way to the front to say hi, but Eleanor rushed me away, not even introducing me properly. After they left, Eleanor and I got into an interesting conversation. "Well, that was Miles," I said. "Yeah, I've heard about him. He recently tied the knot, huh?" Eleanor replied. "Oh, indeed. He married Sheila. She's an absolute gem, you know. Fantastic upbringing and all. Both her parents are top-notch doctors down in Orlando. She's quite a remarkable woman herself, practicing law. Impressive, really. A catch like her is what any man dreams of. Lucky guy, that Miles. I wish my Ethan had that kind of luck, you know." "What do you mean?" "Well, you know how it is. Sometimes I just wish he would have found someone who's, well, more put together. Like Sheila. It's funny how Ethan and Miles grew up together, liking the same things, and look at their wives now. Quite a contrast, huh?" "You know, Eleanor, it's not always about what society thinks. Ethan and I have a history together, and our love runs deep. Sweetie, love is just a word sometimes. You're young, and I get that you're in love. But my love for Ethan is unconditional, and I believe that's the most precious thing in life. If you're claiming you love him so much, don't you think he deserves someone even better? I mean, when I look at you, with your mom gone and your dad disappearing, who knows when, if it weren't for Ethan, could you even take care of yourself? What do you have to offer?" I know these words sting, but they're kind of true, don't you think? Eleanor's words hit me hard, and I was hurt. I tried to move past it, thinking maybe she needed time to accept me. Her comments really got to me, and I was angry. But deep inside, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a grain of truth in what she said. I was pretty insecure back then, which probably made her words cut even deeper. As for me and Ethan, things weren't as great as they used to be. I started questioning if he regretted marrying me. There was a growing distance between us, and I initially blamed it on the challenges we faced with the diner. But there was definitely a shift in our connection. It's been over a year and a half since we got married, and during this time, Eleanor occasionally made hurtful remarks about my background. Despite those comments, I tried my best to stay calm and work on strengthening my relationship with Ethan. However, over time, I noticed a change in Eleanor's behavior. Her comments went beyond the occasional snide remark, and it became clear that something was off. She was acting unpredictably. Then one evening at the dinner table, something unexpected happened. A moment that would alter the course of my life in ways I could never have imagined. "How was your day, dear?" Eleanor asked. "It was all right. Actually, I've been wanting to announce something," Ethan said. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. I think I'm going to invest some of my money in Nancy's education. It's always been her dream to go to college, and the diner is not doing well either." The whole dining room went dead quiet when Ethan dropped that unexpected bomb. I was stunned. He hadn't even talked to me about it beforehand. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and even Eleanor looked shaken. It was a sweet gesture, but a little heads up before dinner would have been nice. What? Jesus Christ, Ethan, Eleanor exclaimed. Mom, please don't overreact, Ethan pleaded. Richard, who had been silent, finally spoke up. Let us hear Ethan out, dear. Ethan and I have not discussed this, I interjected. Ethan, I think it might be a good idea to chat about this one-on-one first. No, you stop. You do not get to have a say in this, Eleanor snapped. We took your mother in at the diner out of pity. Your alcoholic dad abandoned you. She was a single woman with an 8-year-old with no one to look out for her. You and your mother were nothing more than a sympathy project. We generously offered her a place in our diner for so long, and now you have managed to find your way into our house. My son deserved someone better than you, someone from a well-off family. He should be living a suburban life of luxury and sophistication. But instead, you are with him now, living under our roof, leeching off my son's success. Honey, please hear me out, Ethan pleaded as I started to get up. Do not leave. I'm sorry, but I've had enough, I said, tears welling up in my eyes. After putting up with Eleanor's brutal and painful remarks, I just couldn't keep my composure anymore. I excused myself from the dining table and fled into the kitchen for some space. I hovered close to the kitchen door, secretly hoping to catch bits of the conversation unfolding at the table. Through the muted voices, I managed to pick up Ethan's voice rising above the rest. Mom, can't you see what you're doing? I get it. Nancy isn't exactly your top choice for me, and maybe it started out as some sort of crush or whatever, but this has to stop. But look, she lost her mom, and I feel like she needs someone. Maybe I messed up, maybe I mixed up sympathy with love, but I just can't leave her hanging. She doesn't have anyone else in her corner. I'll admit our romantic spark has kind of fizzled, and I've grown apart from that, but Nancy's stuck in a tough spot. She's got nowhere else to turn. I've been thinking about paying for her college, and maybe after that, we can figure out the divorce route or whatever. I just can't kick her out to the curb like that. We've been in this thing since we were 16, you know. Look how she stormed off, Eleanor interjected. Oh my God, Ethan, I've seen this coming from the start. Nancy is nothing but trouble. You've let your emotions run wild. Pity isn't the foundation for a lasting relationship. You have grown, and it's time to think about your own future. This girl's problem should not be your burden. You cannot fix her life at the cost of ruining yours. I was completely floored by what I had just heard. Ethan had been with me out of pity. My heart shattered into a million pieces as our whole marriage felt like a sham. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to give him what he seemed to want, a divorce. I made a bold choice to follow my dreams, which led me straight to Los Angeles. Against all odds, I figured I had nothing to lose. I snagged a small one-room apartment, setting up shop on a basic mattress. Relying on my waiting experience, I aimed to score a gig at a restaurant and jumpstart this new chapter in LA. After a bit of hustling, I landed a job at a restaurant. I got into a rhythm of living paycheck to paycheck, but I wasn't about to let that slow me down. In a few months, I got a sweet promotion to work directly under the restaurant manager. Life started to shift for the better. I wasn't just scraping by anymore. My hard work and skills were earning me some major recognition. I ended up diving into the world of high-end hotel management, working with places that rolled out the red carpet for A-listers. As my career grew, so did my lifestyle. I traded my simple apartment for a lavish house. After the heartbreak with Ethan, I pretty much lost all hope in love. But then Harry walked into my life. Our paths crossed at my friend Elisa's bougie birthday party bash on a yacht. I was still wrapping my head around all that fancy stuff rich people do. Harry had this magnetism about him, and he made me feel comfortable right away. He treated me with genuine respect and awe, like I wasn't some outsider but a legit part of his world. It turns out he was a big shot in the LA finance scene, with a loaded family and all that. It was seriously mind-blowing to find out that his dad, Mr. Johnson, was a billionaire. Fast forward to our wedding day. We tied the knot at a stunning vineyard in Los Angeles, and just last month we hit our first anniversary, which felt like a big deal. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about Ethan and his family during all this time. While I was out here hustling to make a name for myself, Eleanor's words had me feeling something. I kind of had this constant urge to prove to her that I could be successful on my own terms and that it was her son who let me down. Life indeed surprises us in countless ways, and it certainly did surprise me last weekend when my father-in-law hosted a soiree at their sprawling mansion in Bel Air. While I was mingling, my gaze locked onto someone across the room, and my heart went into overdrive. There, serving food, stood an elderly woman who bore a striking resemblance to Eleanor. My mind struggled to comprehend the possibility of her being here. Excusing myself from the company, I made my way to the lady, and yes, it was her. "Hey, Eleanor." "Hey, stranger. It's been long." "It has. What are you doing here?" "Doing the whole catering thing here. Can you believe it? Rubbing shoulders with all these high-profile folks." "Well, congrats on that honor." "Thanks, but honestly, you've got a part in this. We might not have come this far if we were still dealing with some holdbacks." Pretty bold statement. I've always wanted what's best for the family. Sure thing, we shut down the old diner and leaped into the catering world. Ethan came up with the idea, and surprise, surprise, it's turning out to be a pretty profitable deal. Now we're crisscrossing the state catering to all sorts of events and fancy clients. We were in Glendale a few nights ago when Mr. Johnson asked us to cater for his party. You know, I never wish any ill will towards you, so I genuinely hope you're doing well. How's Ethan? Better than he used to be. Oh, and here's the kicker. Ethan has even moved on with his love life and snagged himself a new girlfriend. Usually he accompanies me on these trips, but this time he's off to Hawaii with her. She's a real delight to have around, or just like a living doll. She just seems perfect for my kid. But for him, Eleanor. By the way, what are you doing here? Who called you here? I'm sorry, but you are too poor to be here. You haven't changed at all, have you? Forget about me. Look at you, still trying to get your way around the rich. Old habits die hard, sweetheart. You will always be that girl from Fairfield, the one with nothing to offer. I'm here because I belong here, just like anyone else. No one called me. I came here with Harry, my husband, and also Mr. Johnson's son. Eleanor's face displayed a look of shock, but she played it cool and mean, as always. Don't think he will stick around forever. People like you never stay for long. Eventually, he will see that he deserves someone better, someone from his world. Harriet is just naive. You have no idea how far I have come. I have a name in the hotel industry now, and never mind. You know that your wealth does not define you just as my past does not define me. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and I'm proud of where I stand today. Well, aren't you full of yourself? You may have managed to climb the ladder, but you will never truly fit in with people like us. You will always be an outsider. You know, I used to think that way too, but I have learned that truly belonging does not come from material possessions or social status. You've certainly grown bold, haven't you? Well, we will see how long that lasts. I have seen it all before. It's good that Ethan got rid of you. If you want to delude yourself, go ahead, but do not expect me to change my mind about you. I was all set to deal with Eleanor and show her I meant business, but suddenly, the sound of a spoon hitting a glass stole the spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, please. Tonight, I stand before you with a lot of pride and joy in my heart. It is a momentous occasion as I pass on the torch of responsibility to the next generation. My son, Harry. I gave Harry a quick look, and our eyes connected for a second. I smiled at him, and I'm proud of you, smile. His dad just handed him a whole business, making it his day to remember. It was his special day, and I was seriously determined not to let anyone from my past mess with the great thing I had going on at the moment. Nancy, my dear daughter-in-law, you have shown us the true meaning of strength and resilience. From the very moment I met Nancy, I was captivated by her tenacity, dedication, and unwavering commitment to her dreams. Her journey from a small town to the chaotic city of Los Angeles has impressed me. She is a remarkable young woman who has not only touched my son's heart, but also brought a lot of joy into our lives. Tonight, we celebrate not just the passing of the torch to my son Harry, but also the recognition of Nancy's extraordinary talent and potential. It is with absolute delight that I announce that Nancy will be taking charge alongside Harry as a key leader in our business. It was totally my I made it moment to have Mr. Johnson, the big shot behind this business, acknowledge me and hand over this huge responsibility. I can't even put into words how much that means. With everyone clapping and cheering, Harry made his way to me, leaned in, and gave me a sweet little peck on the cheek. You deserve this as much as I do. I love you, baby. Cheers to us. I love you too. In the middle of all the hype, I hadn't forgotten the conversation I was having with Eleanor earlier. Now, with this huge announcement, I was itching to see her reaction and maybe just drop it on her. I scanned around and there was Eleanor right inside. Hey, I just phoned by to soak up this moment. You know, the one where I get to show you how off the mark you were about me. All the golden days of your doubt. Remember when you thought I'd crash and burn in this world? I had valid concerns, okay. I mean, how could he? No, no, no. You got it all wrong. Well, those words just got upgraded to my achievements. Co-running this business with Harry. Living the life I've always wanted. I did level up for your approval, but I can't deny that it's pretty satisfying watching you squirm. At that moment, a hint of satisfaction crept over me because it seemed like karma was doing its thing perfectly. With a little smug smile, I looked into her eyes, feeling a boost of confidence. Revenge might not be the noblest thing, but seeing Eleanor's jealousy written all over her face was a pretty satisfying win. It's been about a week since the big bash. I'm pretty sure Ethan's back from his vacation by now. Eleanor must have filled him in on the whole deal too. The feeling of proving myself to those who once doubted me is indescribable. It's a reminder that you never know what someone's really made of, and that even the biggest skeptics can be proven wrong. With Harry right there beside me, we are juggling not just one but two businesses. For the Evans, a lesson learned, and for me, well, let's just say I'm living life to the fullest, rich in every sense of the word.